Hello, this is Ashun. What if Naruto brought Sasuke back to Konoha, only to be betrayed by the one person who was supposed to protect him? After defeating Sasuke, Naruto is wounded, exhausted, and ready to return home. But instead of helping him, Kakashi makes a choice that changes everything. He attacks Naruto. Left for dead and abandoned by Konoha, Naruto is saved by three divine beings who have finally had enough of the village's cruelty. They grant him powers beyond anything the shinobi world has ever seen, the power of life, death, nature, and the legendary eye stronger than the greatest dojutsu. But that is only the beginning. Naruto is sent to another world where he meets Bahamut, the king of dragons. Under his training, Naruto becomes something far greater than a ninja. He becomes the Dragon Prince. And after 3 years, Naruto returns to the elemental nations, stronger, colder, and ready to make Konoha answer for everything they did. Interesting? Well then, sit back, relax, and enjoy listening.
One warrior rise Naruto was in unbearable pain currently he ns on the shoulder of the downed and bloodied Sasuke left the village in search of power Sued sent him Niji Chao Kiba and Shikamaru for Sas to bring him back to the village Naruto did this to keep the promise of Saku no Go __ Kakashi Hatake saw Naruto with the Uchiha over his shoulder he frowned he saw Naruto and Sasuke fight he saw Naruto use Rasengan to defeat Sasuke why did Yuri teach him Jusuran and him and not Sasuke I will never know with bitterness thought Kakashi when we get home I will put you on a diet. Groaned Naruto shouldered Naruto was weak and he had slight problems walking Kakashi noticed this and a mental smile ran across his face he immediately began making hand signs Pokken one of the dog's summoners Kakashi who helped him track the two noticed what Kakashi was doing Kakashi what are you doing what are those hands Pakun started to say but was interrupted when Kakashi finished summoning Naruto began to hear the chirping of birds he had a bad feeling because he knew that all the birds had flown away due to the damage caused by the fight he and Sasuke had he looked around and when he found the source in front of him Kakashi jumped out and hit Naruto in the chest with Chidori Naruto fell to the ground coughing up blood Kakashi Shinsei coughed Naruto what are you doing don't call me Shinsei spat out Kakashi you have no right to call me that Naruto recognized the tone it was the tone almost every person in the village spoke to him a voice full of disgust and hatred I'm taking Sasuke back said Kasha but you're not coming back why? Asked Naruto more blood flowed from his throat you died fighting Sasuke who was driven crazy by the curse mark on his neck said Kakashi when he killed you he lost consciousness when I found him and you were dead on the spot why are you doing this? Asked Naruto feeling betrayed when Sasuke wakes up. Kakashi explained I will tell him that he killed you and the final part of his Sharingan will awaken you are doing this for him. Asked Naruto his face lengthened then became angry you are a traitor. He growled if I do not die here I will come back for your head unlikely, said Kakashi taking Sasuke and leaving more power with bitterness Naruto thought I need more power to make him pay meanwhile. High above the Earth Kingdom, three women watched this scene with growing hatred the first was a woman in a white kimono with stripes she had black hair and striking blue eyes the second was dressed in a black kimono with skulls she had red eyes and long white hair the third was dressed in a green-brown kimono with leaves she had long brown hair and bright green eyes in order these were Kami the goddess of the heavens of light and life Shinigami, the goddess of hell, death and darkness, and Toji, the goddess of nature. This is the last straw, Shinigami screamed, her voice was dark like a shallow grave. I don't know what Minato saw in this village when he saved her. I agree, sister, Toji said to her. The voice was like a gentle breeze but strong and unyielding. This village had the nerve to ignore Minato's dying wish and now Minato's own student had killed his son. She said to Kami, her voice was divine. Even though she was angry, a rare expression of anger appeared on her usually calm face. This village had gone unpunished for the last time. The sisters nodded to each other and flew out of their house to help the boy. When they arrived, they found many people in black robes with red clouds on them. They were Akatsuki. They found Naruto. Shinigami smirked. Hello, boys. All Akatsuki turned to see three goddesses. In the name of Kami. Who are you? Asked one. Don't you know that staring is impolite? Kami said, noticing some of the looks they were receiving from them. Itachi was a personal matter. Looking at her, stay out of this. I don't think so. Uchiha, Shinigami said. She rushed forward and placed two fingers on his chest, over his heart, a few seconds later. and Tacha fell to the floor dead. Soon Kami joined the fight. She focused light in her hands and directed it at several participants. They were destroyed by the explosion. Tozi joined in by manipulating water, earth and wood around her. She either crushed members with stone, drowned them in water, or jabbed them with wood. Even though some of the Akatsuki were considered immortal, they could not match the power of the goddesses. Soon they were all gone. Their remains lay on the forest floor except for Madara's remains to be eaten by wolves and birds. They turned to Naruto's body. Let's get to work, girls, said Kami. She walked up to Naruto's fallen body and put her hands on his chest. Her hands glowed brightly and worked their magic on Naruto. Slowly his wounds healed. Naruto slowly woke up and saw the beautiful faces of the goddesses. Are you angels? Asked Naruto, causing the girls to giggle. No, but I control them, said Kami, forcing Naruto to retreat. He looked around and saw the women surrounding him. Don't worry, said Toji, in a calm voice. We are here to help you. Who are you? Asked Naruto, still a little scared. I am Kami, goddess of heaven, light and life, said Kami, smiling. I am Shinigami, goddess of hell, death and darkness, said Shinigami with an evil smile. And I am Tozi, goddess of nature, said Tozi, lowering her friendly gaze. Naruto knew that at the moment he was standing next to the most powerful beings in the universe. He instantly sat up and bowed. Don't bow, Naruto-kun, said Kami. You will make us blush. So why are you here? Asked Naruto, standing up. To help you take revenge on the village that did this to you, growled Shinigami. How do we give you these gifts in the hope that you will use them to punish evil in the world and take revenge on the village that did this to you, said Kami seriously. Okay, said Naruto, smirking. I accept your gifts and the conditions that come with them. Three goddesses smiled at Naruto's words. They knew what he was thinking, and although they knew that he thought it would be cool to have that kind of power, they knew that he was pure of heart and that he was not going to abuse it. I am the first, said the Kami, approaching the boy. My gift is the power of light and life. You can heal any wound to the mind, body, and soul. She placed her hand on Naruto's chest and a white glow ran through him. Shinigami stepped forward. My gift of death is that you can inflict any injury on anyone who is deep enough to be your opponent. She placed her hand on his chest and a black glow ran through him. Tozi stepped forward. My gift of nature. Now you can control all the elements, understand all animals and insects, and your senses will be heightened to such an extent that they will be equal to animals or even better than them. She placed her hand on his chest and a green glow ran through him. Naruto felt his ears and nose become more sensitive when he opened his eyes. He noticed that he could see a little clearer. This is not all we have for you, she said the Kami. Shinigami and Tozi placed their hands on Naruto's face. When they did this, Naruto's eyes suddenly began to glow when they lowered their hands. Naruto screamed in pain as his eyes stung. He looked questioningly at the goddesses. What was it? He asked them. Naruto, we gave you a jutsu. Yes, the Kami answered him, we call it the Twilight Eye. It has the power of all three forms of the Sharingan, the Byakugan, and the Rinnegan. What is a Rinnegan? Naruto asked. The eye technology belonging to it allowed them to see sound so they could easily determine where the enemy is in the dark. Toji explained. Naruto's eyes widened from this. He had the power of the most powerful clans in Konoha. Do you want to see? Toji asked, taking out a mirror. Naruto nodded and directed chakra into his eyes. He took the mirror from Toji and looked into the mirror. The whites of his eyes turned black. The iris acquired the color of the forest zen, and the pupil constantly changed color, the shape of the star you see on the compass rose. Now about our next gift, the Kami said as she and her sister placed their hands on Naruto's forehead. Naruto felt an electric discharge in his brain, then before his eyes he saw jutsu, all their types, kinjutsu, ninjutsu, jinjutsu, all of them, even the ones he's never seen. Now you know all the jutsu that exist, said Tozi when they removed their hands. As a bonus you don't need to use hand signs for them. Naruto smirked as he began to realize the power he now possessed. And now, said Shinigami, for our last gift. She raised her hands and closed her eyes. As soon as she did, the sky turned black and lightning struck. What is she doing? Thought Naruto, watching. Meanwhile the village hidden in the foliage was waiting for the return of its precious Uchiha. This idiot better bring Sasuke home, Sakura said irritably. He promised me that he would return. Ino stood next to her and waited, but she was not waiting for Sasuke, she was waiting for Naruto. At first she was in love with Naruto because he helped her when she was bullied by some hooligans. Initially she was shy, but after Naruto helped her she became more outspoken. The only reason which she pretended to be in love with Sasuke was that it kept her close to Sakura so that she would have a friend. Hinata was with them along with the others who were waiting. She was nervous waiting for Naruto. She had been in love with him from the very beginning because he always showed determination and strength. She found it very admirable. I knew I shouldn't have counted on that idiot, Sakura screamed, losing her patience. That loser always ruins everything. You shouldn't talk about him like that, Hinata stuttered, starting to get annoyed. He could hurt you if he wanted, but please. Sakura smirked. That loser wouldn't dare hurt me. I am his Sakura-chan. Hinata let out an internal growl. She really wanted to grab Sakura by the neck, rip out her throat and wave it in front of her. I should have listened to her. Said a familiar voice. They turned around and saw Garo from the desert with Timur and Kankura. With them were Shizune and Tsunade. What are you doing here? Ino asked. We were an insurance policy. Timur said we were brought here to help the guys who went after that punk. It's good we did because we found that fat guy in bad shape and 3 others in a bad situation after they finished off the sound ninja they were fighting. The sand ninja brought the leaf ninja back. Tsunade managed to bring them to a stable condition, seeing that many of them were quite seriously injured. At that moment, Kakashi was coming down the hill. Sakura smiled when she saw Sasuke on his shoulder. Ino and Hinata looked worried when they didn't see Naruto. Where is Naruto? Tsunade asked Kakashi when he approached her. He's dead, Kakashi said, hearing Hinata's sigh. Sasuke killed him in battle and, dying, he asked me to bring Sasuke back. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and heard Gaara grin. The blonde would never lose to this weakling, he said. Gaara, what are you talking about? Asked Sakura, looking at him like he was crazy. Sasuke obviously defeated Naruto. In the end he defeated you. Witnesses say Naruto weakened you. For him your sources lied. Growled Gaara. Uchiha fought and lost. Uzumaki defeated me. You are kidding. Laughed Sakura. He could have fought his way through the wet exam paper. All but a few people laughed. Naruto's test results were released. Every time he failed everyone continued laughing until Sakura was pinned to the wall by a massive hand made of sand. They all froze, feeling the murderous name emanating from Gaara. Listen to me, you pink-haired pain in the ass. Growled Gaara. When it comes to fighting strong worthy opponents I'm not lying. Uzumaki defeated me. They you're pathetic. Uchiha, watch your language. Growled Kakashi. Kakashi, said Tsunade, you said Naruto died. Well, I gave him something and I would really like to return it. She knew that Naruto would want to return her necklace that he won from her on a bet. What? Asked Kakashi, not believing that someone would voluntarily give the demons something valuable. A liar, suddenly screamed and punched Kakashi in the face. Do you know where he is? I killed him with a Chidori so Sasuke would get the next level of his Sharingan, stuttered Kakashi, looking at the enraged woman whose facial features darkened with rage. She gave Kakashi the best beating of his life. Tsunade, what are you doing? Asked the civilian. This man is a hero who killed a demon. The man was knocked down by the enraged Kankura. The doll user has been imbued with sympathy for the guy since he helped his family in the Chunin exams. Jiraiya, screamed Tsunade. Yes, asked Jiraiya, appearing next to her. Did you get it all? She asked. Jiraiya nodded. Okay. She said, now go find Naruto, maybe he's still alive. At that moment thunder struck and the sky turned black. Everyone was wondering what was going on when they heard Gaara groan. They looked at him and saw a pained expression on his face. Suddenly he glowed with a faint brown light and then from his stomach a stream of pure chakra burst out. The chakra formed Shukaku, who threw his head back and roared. Then he turned into a stream of chakra and flew away. Jiraiya managed to overcome the shock and ran after him. In all the elemental nations the same thing happened to the other Jinchuriki. They felt pain and then the monster inside them broke out and ran away. Fortunately those who held them survived, although they will be sick for a few more days. All the streams formed together and headed to one place with Naruto. He was wondering what was happening. Then he saw streaks of light and they all fell on him. He screamed in pain when he felt that the chakra merged with him. What was that? He grumbled when the pain subsided. Is our last gift, said Kami. We merged you with another. I see, together with the one you already have. You know that you have all their abilities, but what about? Don't worry, those who held them back survived and they still have the powers they had when they held them back. Suddenly a portal opened right next to them. What is it? Asked Naruto. There, explained Tozi. You and you are heading. Someone there has been wanting to see you for a long time. He is an old friend of your family. How do I recognize him? Asked Naruto. Believe me, it is impossible not to notice him. Naruto turned to enter the portal when Kamiya stopped him. And the last thing she said, she suddenly rushed forward and captured Naruto's lips. Naruto was thrown back by a sudden kiss but closed his eyes and began kissing her back. After the kiss was interrupted, Shinigami came up and kissed him. When she finished, Tozi did the same. We will wait for you, darling, said Kami. Giggles nodded and entered the portal. Let's go, girls, said Shinigami. Next stop, Konoha Part 2. In the new world, Konoha eagerly awaited Naruto's return. Some of them wanted to see their friend again, others just wanted to see him executed for what he did to their precious Uchiha. Gaara cooled his jets a little and brought Sakura, and Sasuke woke up from his little sleep, plus Kakashi woke up from beating Tsunade. After some time of waiting, Jiraiya returned with a polyur's expression, said Tsunade. What happened? You look like you saw a ghost. Akatsuki, gasping for breath, said Jiraiya. They're dead. What? Said Tsunade, clearly shocked by the news. I found bodies there, explained Jiraiya. Well, at least what was left of them was either crushed, drowned, or, in some cases, evaporated. What about Naruto? Asked Tsunade, worried about the little child. I looked everywhere and didn't find him. I can only think of Naru, kill Katsuki, even Tachi died. What did Sasuke exclaim? The only reason Sasuke wanted power was so he could kill his brother and avenge his clan. As much as I'd like to say that it was like that, a new voice said. Naruto didn't kill them. Everyone turned to the new voice and were shocked to see Kami. Shimi soon joined her. And so you are and why are you here? Zhdan. Why did another civilian say, approaching Kame. They were sent to Kame as a reward for us for harming a demon and praising us for killing him. Isn't that cute? He grinned at Kama with a lecherous grin. Many of the other villagers thought so too. Some of the men looked around from head to toe thinking about the perverted things they could do to the girls for a reward. This caused a strong shock when Kami's calm face turned to anger as she lifted a villager from the ground and with all her strength threw him to the other side of the village. She spat out the dirt in disgust. Kami, do you think that for hurting someone you should get a reward? We should, exclaimed the civilian. That demon disappeared because of us, so we should be rewarded. You wouldn't have recognized the demon if it had bitten your leg, said Shinigami. Who do you think you are? Asked the angry civilian. To show them, Kami summoned a ball of light in her hands. Shinigami summoned a ball of darkness and Tozi made the forest around her come to life. 3 goddesses, exhaled Kakashi. Who do you think else killed Akatsuki? Asked Tozi. Made the civilians gasp. You did it, Hinata asked, now a little scared of the 3 women standing in front of the village. Well, I killed Itachi, Shinigami said. The 2 took care of the rest, except for Madara, he wasn't there. Shinigami didn't even have to sweat. Comb the chiri that you sent to Sasuke. How dare you kill him? Sasuke was raging. No one will take away my meaning in life. Do you hear me? No one. Shinigami threw Sasuke aside with a casual wave of his hand. Why are you hurting Uchiha? Hamura asked when the older woman went to help their precious Uchiha. I feel sorry for her, Shinigami said. Even now, you're lying down. This is weak. You can't talk about Sasuke like that. Sakura was angry at this woman who dared to hurt her beloved. You will soon see the error of your ways, Tozi said. But we're not here to fight. We're here to deliver a message to you. Uzumaki is alive. He's alive, Hinata asked happily. Ino smiled at this. Yes, said Kami, feeling a positive response to what her sister said. We sent him to another world where ours is waiting. Friend, there Naruto will become stronger. He will become the most powerful ninja on this entire planet. Those of you who befriended him will be forgiven. Your graze against our Naruto-kun. Naruto-kun, Sakura screamed. How could you love that loser Sasuke? Clearly better than him. You will see when he comes back, said Kami, irritating the pink-haired girl. He will return after 3 years of training. When he does, be prepared for the fact that he will turn your world upside down. The sisters turned to leave when a certain Uchiha spoke. Give me this power, he ordered. What did you say? Asked Shinigami. His power, he repeated. I want it. I deserve it more than this loser. Kami lost her composure and grabbed him by the shirt. You don't deserve anything of what you were given, she barked. Kami pulled her hand back and punched Sasuke in the face, sending him flying like a turnip doll above the village. He crashed into the wall and collapsed. Damn you, Sakura, she screamed. VD rushed with the intention of actually hurting a woman. Pretty stupid. If you want to know my opinion, Sakura would have gotten to her if Hinata hadn't reacted and used a beetle strike to knock her out. She felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around and saw her father, who had a proud expression on his face. I'll tell you now, said Toji. You will pay for your crimes very soon. After saying this, the 3 women disappeared in a bright flash of light, leaving the villagers to worry about what just happened. Meanwhile, with Naruto in another world, Naruto stepped through the portal and gasped when he saw this world looked almost exactly like his own. The same trees, the same sky, the same sun, the same forest. He saw many animals running between the trees and heard the buzzing of insect wings. He sighed. He only felt such peace when he was resting by the tsunami in the land of waves. Then Naruto heard a scream. He sighed again. Maybe this was another world, but it seemed it still had some of the same problems. However, before he began searching, he decided to get rid of his leaf headband since he was no longer part of that village. Thanks to his enhanced hearing, Naruto was able to find the source of the scream. He found what looked like a bandit camp. What Naruto saw next really made him blood. Scepter was probably no older than 8. Her hair was bright pink and her brown eyes were full of fear. Don't worry, kid, said the bandit. It will only hurt at first. The little girl whined slightly when the other bandits laughed. Naruto growled. He knew he couldn't just rush in there. These guys were using women as insurance, so he wouldn't do anything. The power of Shukaku should come in handy here. Naruto thought. He focused on the ability he saw Gaara use in the Chunin exams. He concentrated and said giant burial in the sand. His voice was heard by the bandits and women who looked around to find the source. Suddenly a pillar of sand burst out of the ground and knocked down the bandit holding the girl from her feet. Then from the ground shot up before they were sucked underground. Then there was a bang and the ground shook. The girls looked in shock at what had just happened. The little girl slowly stood up. Naruto decided to appear. She turned around and saw him. She looked a little scared and backed away. However, when Naruto smiled at her, the fear evaporated and she smiled back. Naruto walked up to the cage where the other girls were and took a good look at them. One had green eyes and red hair, another had blue hair and brown eyes, and the last one was a blonde with blue eyes. Naruto smiled slightly when he took out a kunai and destroyed the lock on the cage. Almost as soon as the cage was closed, the women pounced on him and thank you, said the red-haired woman, squeezing Naruto in a tight embrace. He would tell her to let go because she was putting pressure on him, but at the moment his face was clamped between her breasts, the other girls also hugged him. Pathetic paradise with faces in his face, chest and shoulders. Welcome, he said Naruto when he was finally released from the deadly embrace. Wow, that's right, my name is Sally, said the red-haired blonde Sarah Blue Alexandra, and here's Pinky Carrie, my name is Naruto. Funny name. Carrie giggled but got a frown from Alexandra. That's not how to talk to the guy who saved us. Blue growled. She turned to Naruto. Sorry, my sister is always a little clueless. So where do you live? Asked Naruto. Our village isn't that far, said Sally. You can stay with us for a while, plus while you're there we can buy you new clothes. Naruto looked down at his outfit. He was still wearing the clothes he wore when he fought Sasuke. There were burn marks and a hole in his shoulder from the Chidori he got. I don't want to cause trouble, said Naruto. Don't worry, Sarah said reassuringly. It's the least we can do after you saved us. Naruto nodded, agreeing with them. As they left, they didn't suspect that someone was watching from above. So you're the one they sent for me, he said, deep voice. Very interesting. Naruto followed the girls until they found their village. It was a small village consisting mainly of huts and small buildings. When they entered the village, they were stopped by two guards. Girls, you are safe, said one of the guards, smiling at them. When he noticed Naruto, he looked a little worried. Who is this, he asked. Is it Naruto? Said Sarah. He is the guy who saved us from those that they were going to hurt Carrie. The guard growled slightly. He knew that these bandits were dirty, but he never imagined this. He also knew that since the bandits were stopped, they would come back in greater numbers. He had to tell the leader, come with me, that's all, said the guard. They all followed him into a fancy-looking hut. Inside he saw an old man in fancy clothes. My lord, said the guard, the women who were kidnapped by the bandits were returned, but the bandits will return. The leader lowered his head. We cannot withstand another battle with these bandits. He can help us, said Carrie, looking at Naruto. He is an amazing fighter. You can fight? Asked the leader. Naruto nodded and the leader smiled. The bandits will be here by night, said the chief. Be ready by then. With these words they were released. After they left, Sally dragged Naruto to the clothing store. Naruto looked around a bit until he found clothes that suited him. He chose a black shirt with a red fire symbol on the back. He also bought a white jacket with a dragon symbol on the left shoulder. He bought baggy black jeans and a pair of blue sandals. While looking around the store, he found something that didn't belong. A sword. What is it doing here? He asked the owner of the store. It was a bald fat man. It was found outside the village many years ago, explained the owner of the store. They say that it was made from the fang of the dragon god Bogota, and only a person of incredible strength can draw it from its sheath. Naruto put his hand to his chin, thinking. He reached out and took the sword from its place. What are you doing? Asked the owner of the store. When Naruto, he put his hand on the sword. Then, to the shock of the shop owner, he pulled it out of the sheath, and the blade was worthy of contemplation. The blade was a deep golden color and shone like the sun. The blade was curved in the shape of a fang. Meanwhile, the figure high above the world smiled. He found the sword, thought it was excellent. How much? Asked Naruto. Girls appeared and were fascinated by the sword. For free, said the shop owner, and good luck to you in today's fight. Apparently everyone knew about his today's campaign against the bandits. He noticed that people were looking at him and whispering something. Reaching the guards, he summoned a stone to sit on. The guards looked at him in shock and then smiled. As all this happened, Naruto had to wonder what was happening back home in Konoha. What do you mean by the daimyo cutting our budget by 40%? Asked Danzo. When the council was in turmoil throughout the day, things went from bad to worse. Apparently the three goddesses sent word of what happened to several daimyo and their allies. The daimyo of fire. The cuts were made into the budget, and it was just one blow. The next blow was from Nansgara, who was the Kazi of his village. He cut off his ties with the village because of helping trade routes. The next blow was dealt from the Land of Spring. Originally it was called the Land of Snow, but after Naruto brought back their princess and activated the heat generator in the mountains, the name was changed. Princess Yuki not only severed ties with the village but also broke her contract for a role in the film Ika Ira. Jair actually fainted from this because he hoped that such a beautiful girl would be in his film. The next blow was dealt from the village of Urfo. They turned everyone from the Leaf Village into their enemies and added them to the list of their neighboring enemies. They thought that anyone who did this to the hero did not deserve to be their ally. Finally, the winds and waves made sure that the Leaf Village had no business with any of the villages on their lands. Things in the Leaf Village went downhill and quickly in everything. The demons are to blame, shouted the representative of the civilian council. The other members of the civilian council agreed with him. This wouldn't have happened if you had done something, Suna shouted. At that moment, Jira appeared. I searched everything with my spy network, Prino said, but there are no signs of his presence anywhere. Why are we even worried? Said Shika Kunara. They said that Naruto won't return for 3 years. We will see him then and only then. Yes, Kaharu growled. But when that time comes, the demon will die, and you think that Uchiha will be the one to kill him? Ina asked her. Yes, because he will undergo special training, she answered. Looking at Jiro, you will teach Uchiha everything you know, including racing, she said smugly, thinking that the sage would do this. This was what shocked her when she felt the murderous intent emanating from him. No, Jira growled. This council orders that I will never train this spoiled brat. Naruto is my student, and he will be my only student. The elderly woman would have argued even more if Jira hadn't disappeared. In a cloud of smoke, Danza growled, nothing like this would have ever happened if that brat was registered in my root program. No, said Tsunade, this wouldn't have happened if you actually showed the boy a little compassion. Tsunade left the room with the council yelling at her to come back later. In another world, Naruto sat on the stone he made and waited for the bandits. Several hours had passed since he sat there and he was getting bored. Naruto saw over the hill an army of bandits twice the size of the one that Gaara brought with him when he attacked the village hidden in the fog. Who are you, boy? Asked the leader of the bandits when he and his men got close enough. The guy who is going to stop you, answered Naruto. The bandits laughed and started to move forward when Naruto shouted, Earth-style stone golem. Naruto slapped his hand on the ground and sure enough a golem made entirely of stone rose from the ground. What kind of magic is this? Asked the leader of the bandits as he and his men began to retreat in fear. Naruto smirked as they ran away, but after they were a few feet away from him, they were engulfed in flames. A very nice young man, said one of the guards, clapping Naruto on the back. How did you do the trick with fire? Said Naruto. It wasn't me. Suddenly there was a loud roar and a lot of smoke rose. All the villagers came to look and were shocked to see a huge dragon in front of their house. Let the one named Naruto come forward, the beast Naruto ordered, slowly stepping forward. So you are the one they sent to me in this world, said the dragon, looking at Naruto. Who are you? Asked Naruto. The dragon smiled and answered, I am Rich, the Dragon King. Part 3 Training and Return. Naruto sat in a field, legs crossed and his hands folded in the form of a ram seal. Nearby stood the girls from yesterday, watching him. With them was a man in mostly white armor with a little gold on his shoulders and plate gauntlets. He did not have a helmet, so you could see that he had black hair and pale skin, but what was striking was his eyes. They were for a few seconds and then it stopped. Naruto sighed even more. Don't give up yet, Naruto. The man said. Try again. Naruto sighed and tried to focus again. While doing this he remembered how he ended up in this situation. Memories. Your Baggett? Asked Naruto staring at the dragon. Yes, it's me, answered the dragon. Why are you here? Asked Naruto. To train you, answered Baggett. Naruto's jaw almost dropped to the floor when he heard this. Is why me? Asked Naruto. Like gods, where do you come from? I have seen the suffering you had to go through. I intend to help you gain power enough to make you the strongest in both this world and the next. Good, said Naruto smirking. Let's do this. There was a bright flash of gold and instead of a large beast in front of them was a man in white armor. His golden eyes slits were completely filled with power as if they did not expect anything else from the person who used them. Good, said Baggett in a normal human voice. We start tomorrow because now it's very late and I had a very long flight here. Okay, said Naruto. Where will I sleep tonight? Here? No, here with me. No, I had many other calls from girls who indicated that they were sleeping with them. Naruto chose a hut that was on the south side of the deer. He slept soundly that night. The next day Naruto and Baggett began training. Before you can begin training, said Bahamut, you must first use the power of the dragon. Baggett crossed his arms over his chest when he began to emit a bright golden glow that practically radiated power. I want you to try to do this until you completely master it. End flash. Naruto tried to master the summoning of the power that Baga used and he did not succeed. Naruto, said Bahamut, you need to focus more on your goal. The power of the dragon is to protect something valuable to you. Think of someone or something that you need to protect, something for which you would give your life. Naruto closed his eyes and thought. His thoughts moved to his friends, those whom he truly considered his friends and for the protection of whom he was ready to die. And in the end, his thoughts turned to Hinata, her smile, her eyes. It gradually dawned on him that Naruto had feelings for her, and the reason why she always blushed next to him fell on him like a ton of bricks without him knowing it. He slowly studied the power that Baggett had previously studied. Slowly it grew and grew until it became like a raging golden fire. Naruto, stop, Baggett shouted, tearing Naruto away from his thoughts after the golden fire went out. Baggett clapped his hands. He said, you've learned to summon power. Now you must learn to use it. Naruto smirked, first saying, a dragon in human form. You, study the basic powers. First, you must concentrate the energy in your hand and levitate this stone. Baggett, he took the stone in his hand and it slowly floated in his palm. Naruto picked up the stone and began to concentrate until the stone began to float. Baggett smirked at the progress Naruto was making. So how long will this training take? Naruto asked. About 3 years, said the disguised creature, which Naruto shouted. The training will consist of mastering the power you possess and the spells that come with it. Baggett explained. Usually, it would take someone years to master this, but with your potential, it will only take 3. Naruto groaned beautifully. Meanwhile, we returned to Konoha. Hinata was sitting at a regular ramen table. Iris Naru. Amy had been a little upset since Naruto had obviously developed feelings for him since she first met him. Hinata was enjoying a bowl of beef ramen when Ino walked in. This place is taken, she asked. Hinata shook her head in response. Ino's power and ordered herself pork ramen. Listen, Hinata began. Ino, I know I've never been like this. I'm sweet with Naruto, but I actually consider him a friend. What are you doing? Asked Hinata with a puzzled expression on her face. Ino looked around and leaned towards me. Can you keep a secret? She asked, receiving a nod from Hinata. I never liked Sasuke. The only reason I kept acting like this was because I wanted to stay close to Sakura, because she was my only friend. Then who is the real reason for your affection? Asked Ayami, whose voice sounded a little happier than usual. I love Naruto, answered Ino. I've had a little crush on him ever since he saved me from some bullies when I was little. It seems we have a common goal, said Hinata. Find Naruto and make him ours. What's going on? Said a familiar annoying voice. They all turned to see Sakura standing in the doorway to the podium. What are you two doing here? Banshee asked Ino. Shouldn't you be with Sasuke while he recovers? I don't like Sasuke. Sakura said Ino. Take a bite of your ramen. What? How could you not be interested? Sakura asked this Sasuke. He is one of the best ninja in the village. He is a spoiled brat, growled in Pits. He is not worth all the hype that has been thrown at him over the years. You guys are not indifferent to Naruto. Sakura realized this is crazy. Sasuke is much better than this loser Naruto. I really doubt that he even likes you. Sakura said Hinata. He probably lacks down below. Shut up, Sakura growled. I bet he really is there, and with his stamina I bet he could take me all night long. A dreamy look appeared in her eyes. If you were a man, said Ino. And gay. Sakura growled and lunged at Ino. Ino in response jumped up and threw her bowl of ramen in her face. Sakura screamed when hot broth splashed in her face. Hinata delivered several punches to Jun in the stomach, and then Amy took out a frying pan and lowered it on Sakura's forehead, resulted in the pink Banshee losing consciousness, which was what Ayami was supposed to do. Hinata asked, referring to Zukin's blows to Sakura's stomach. Hinata smirked. My dad allowed me to have some training with Tsunade, she explained. She taught me body parts. These blows left her uterus completely barren. Mila praised Ino, saying meanly, Aya. Returning to another world, Naruto trained for less than a year. He mastered basic spells that included levitating objects and using the elements. He began working on more complex ones. The newest, complex, used his power to summon snakes, dragons, and other creatures using dragon energy instead of using chakra and seals like a normal ninja. So far, he had managed to summon ordinary snakes the size of Sanaken and the Komodo dragon. He was working on summoning forest animals. To do this, all he had to do was concentrate on the animal he wanted to summon. Naruto focused on summoning a bird. He was delighted when he found a robin in his hand. Okay, he said, now try summoning an eagle. Naruto focused on the eagle. The man concentrates and gets up. He got into a fighting stance. His legs were spread and bent at the knees. Both hands were clenched into fists in front of him, one above the other. Copy what I'm doing, he said. Naruto got into the same stance and copied what the Dragon King did. He copied his move after move, every blow, every move. Naruto copied. Every time he screwed up, Baggett made him do it again. It took Naruto a year until he managed to master the fighting style. Back in Konoha, everyone else was getting stronger too. Ino received scrolls from her father and mastered the family jutsu. Hana also mastered her family style and is currently developing new techniques for her clan. Hinata and Hanabi underwent Hyuga sage training. Unlike training with real sages, they did not receive an increase in chakra, but they received a whole new world of fighting techniques. Hinata learned this without the knowledge of the Hyuga Council. They wanted to put the caged bird seal on Hinata, but Heshi did not allow this. Don't let it happen. In case the clan members had any stupid ideas, Heshi would put her through sage's training so she could kick Major's ass. The others didn't get that far in their training, but they got much stronger. Unfortunately, Sasuke also got stronger. Because he was secretly trained by Danza, who wanted to keep Sasuke under his thumb. Sakura didn't really get any better because she still stuttered in front of Sasuke. Back in Naruto's world, the Dragon King sent Naru for a year of training. Dragon sword fighting style. This basically involved using the sword as an extension of the arm. During this time, Naruto learned to concentrate the spells he learned into the sword. This meant that Naruto could use elements to strengthen his sword and combine them to form other elements, like wind and water to form ice or fire, and earth to form metal. He also learned some common sword fighting techniques that, when used correctly, can be very deadly. Naruto said, Gamu yours. Training is complete, but before you go, I have one last gift for you. What is it? Naruto asked. I will merge my power with you. He said. As soon as I do this, you will be able to summon my power at will. You will be able to summon me whenever you want. You will also receive many abilities that will help you. Thank you, teacher. Naruto said. Cloning. Bahamut took the form of a dragon and released a powerful stream of fire from his mouth. The flames engulfed Naruto. The girls who had been watching all this time gasped. For the 3 years that Naruto was there, he fell in love with Sally Alexandra and Sarah. He was too old for Carrie, but he knew someone from his world who would love her. When the flames went out, Naruto was depicted in a different outfit. He was wearing a golden shirt and baggy blue jeans. He had black boots with small blades on the back. He was wearing a white cloak with golden flames at the bottom and a silver law on the back. Naruto also had silver highlights in his hair. His eyes attracted the most attention. Now they were golden with a black pupil. What do you think? Naruto asked the girls who were drooling. So what are you going to do now? Sally asked. I'm going back to my world. Naruto answered. I need to settle scores. We'll go with you. Alexandra said. No. Naruto said, making the blue one pout. This is my fight and only mine. Are you going to stay there? Sarah asked. No. Naruto said, making the blue one pout. This is my home now. I want to make this village like my home. Baggett can be the leader and I want you to train the villagers who want to fight. Fight well. All the girls nodded. Around the second year of Naruto's training, the Dragon King allowed the girls to participate in training. They were allowed to study magic and fight with various weapons. They became unrivaled fighters. Even Kree could probably fight a team of Anbu and win. Are you ready, Naruto? Baggett asked his student. Naruto nodded. He turned to the girls and kissed Sally, Alexandra, and Sarah goodbye after Baggett opened a portal. Naruto jumped through it. Naruto looked around a little and saw a lake and a familiar village. He was in the land of volume not far from the village hidden by fog. Naruto smiled. It would be great to see Tsunami, Tazuna and Inari again. Naruto found the lake he usually crossed to get to the village and the thick fog that surrounded the village to keep people they didn't want to see. Naruto applied chakra to his legs and began to walk on water. He started with a simple walk but then switched to running so no one would see him. He didn't want to know that he was back. When Naruto entered the village he noticed that everything had changed since he was here the last time. It was bustling with business. In the grocery stores there was a lot of food and the people didn't look like skeletons. They looked healthy and as if they were getting enough food. Naruto passed by the bridge he was helping Taz not build and he noticed a sign on it. He slowly read it. The Great Naruto Bridge is named after the boy who gave hope and freedom will return to our village, a true hero, and I had to name it after me, thought Naruto. He managed to get through the village so that none of the villagers recognized him. He found Tazuna's house and knocked on the door. I'm coming, said a voice from the other side of the door. The door opened and 11-year-old Inri appeared on the threshold. Hello, he asked, opening the door. When he saw Naruto he froze. Hello little buddy, said Naruto, giving Inari a fox-like grin. Naruto, screamed Inari, rushing forward and hugging Naruto tightly. Inri dragged Naruto inside and called his mother darling, asked Tsunami, entering the room. What are all these screams about? Her voice broke off when she saw Naruto. She also blushed slightly when she saw how handsome he had become. Hello Tsunami, said Naruto. Tsunami rushed forward and almost crushed him in a crushing embrace. Let's wait until Tazuna gets home to start catching up, said Naruto when Tsunami released him from his embrace. We have something to talk about. Part of the Dragon Force couple. Later when Tazuna came home from work he looked like he had seen resurrection. He practically crushed Naruto in a bear hug. He was about to bring a bottle of sake to celebrate but Tsunami stopped him. When Tazuna calmed down he asked Naruto to tell them what happened and where he had been for the last few years. Naruto sat down and began to tell them about his adventures in another world. They all sat and listened with interest. Two adults looked as if they had been told that Naruto could turn stones into. Inri's eyes were surprised. They sparkled with childish wonder when he listened. For him it was like he was being told a bedtime story. I still can't believe those idiots did this to you from scratch, Tazuna growled, taking a sip of sake. How could someone do this to a child? I know, Grandpa, Tsunami said sadly. I wonder if any of them will actually try to repent of their sins. Not. I have to hate them all, Naruto said. Shokiro, not all the villagers hated me. Some shinobi clan heads actually tried to adopt me, but the civilian council always rejects those who always wanted me dead. Why only them? Tazuna asked, raising an eyebrow. I think the Kyuubi did them more harm, Naruto suggested, shrugging. Well, Tsunami said, standing up. Let's not just sit here and feel sorry for each other. I'll go make dinner. When Tsunami left, Naruto pulled Inri aside. If you want to learn a few ninja tricks, Naruto whispered in his ear, I'll teach you them. Inri nodded vigorously. Then we'll start tomorrow, Naruto said, smirking as they all sat down to eat. That night, Naruto slept soundly. The next day, right after breakfast, Naruto began training Inri. To start, Naruto said, I'll teach you how to control chakra. But I don't have an older brother with chakra, Inri said. If there's something I've learned, younger brother. Naruto chuckled, so this is what all living beings have. Naruto formed the Terran seal with energy and told Inri to do it and concentrate. It took Inri a few minutes but eventually he felt something. He couldn't see it but Naruto could. With his enhanced eyes, he saw a regular amount of chakra rising in the boy. Good, Naruto said. You've learned to release your chakra. Now for jutsu. Naruto spent the rest of the morning teaching Inari chakra control and some basic techniques like justice transformation, cloning, and replacement. He promised him that when he mastered them, he would teach Inri more without their knowledge. An eagle was watching them when it saw Naruto. It flew away. Naruto heard the flapping of wings. He looked and saw an eagle flying in the other direction. It smirked slightly. They better not do anything stupid, Naruto thought as he went inside. Meanwhile, the eagle flew through the forest without stopping for at least an hour before it landed on the man's hand. The man in question was a ninja from the Hidden Leaf. He was wearing regular Anbu clothes except for his mask. Tasteless, and it had an inscription, not the beast-like appearance that normal Anbu had. He also had the leaf symbol imprinted on his forehead. A falcon landed on his hand, then he transformed into his exact copy and turned into smoke. The man received the memory of his transformed clone and smirked under his mask. He turned and ran towards the Hidden Leaf village. Meanwhile, in the Hidden Leaf, Tsunade was sitting at her desk doing paperwork. She was so annoyed that if they didn't bring her some sake in a minute she would go crazy. She had a headache, and it only got worse when Sakura came in. She had been angry at Hinata Ino ever since the incident at the restaurant. She demanded that they be punished for harming Sasuke's future wife, but Suna told her to back off. She never told Sakura that her womb was now sterile because it was her idea to do it. As they say, hit them where it hurts. I want you to practice. Think about it. She could swear that the genin was demanding something from her apparent superior. I said I wanted you to train me, Sakura repeated. You don't need to become strong so I can kick Naruto's ass and then Sasuke will love me. Sakura folded her hands together and a dreamy expression appeared on her face. This look was replaced by horror when she felt the old woman in front of her moving with the intent to kill. Get out, Tsunade growled. Sakura actually did something smart this time and ran out of there like a scared rabbit. Tsunade sat back down when her headache started to get worse. She really needed aspirin. It only got worse when a hunter ninja showed up and told her that she needed to call the council because he had information on a serious matter. It took a while, but the councils were put together. What's so important? Sumi asked impatiently. She was busy with something and hated being interrupted. This guy says he has information on an important matter. Question, answered Tsunade. The ninja stepped forward. I have the location of this boy Naruto. He said, where is he? Hamar asked him. She wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. Eventually a team of ninja hunters was sent to find Naruto and kill him. Tsunade and many clan heads from the Shinobi Council tried to stop the sending of hunters, but the civilian council overruled their decision and sent them away. What they didn't know was that among the team were native Anbu. They were supposed to take the boy back to Konoha Danza so that he could turn Naruto into his weapon with a clear purpose. They went into the hidden fog. Meanwhile, Naruto was playing with Inari when he heard something in his head. The boy Bahamut mentally asked Naruto. Yes, the voice answered. Kid, we have a problem. Your former village sent hunters to kill you, but among them there are Danza troops who want to take you back and turn you into a weapon. The reason Bahamut knew about this is because Kamishimi and Toz told him about Naruto's life. If they hadn't, he never would have taken Naruto as trainee. They also told him who Naruto's enemy was and what they intended to do. How he knew that the ninja would come for him now was because even the smallest lizards were considered dragons. His spies were everywhere in the elemental countries. Unfortunately, his spies were not the only ones in the village of the hidden sound. Lord Aroma, said Kabuto, dropping to one knee. Our spies found the boy Uzumaki. Excellent, said Urukai Maru. Go with a team of experienced ninja and bring him here. If he really has the power our spies talk about, then I can finally become a god among men. Spies. Urukai Mora witnessed the incident 3 years ago with the goddesses. Urukai Maru hid because this power seemed to surpass the Sharingan in the village of the hidden clouds. Sir, said NBU entering the Raikage's office. Our network of spies in the land of fire found the boy. Good, said the Raikage. Tell them to kidnap the boy and bring him here. The Raikage had several commands in the land of fire. He heard about what this guy was capable of and wanted to use it for his village in the land of waves. I have some business to take care of. Inri, said Naruto, standing up. Tell Tsunami not to wait for me. Naruto left, leaving a confused Inari behind him. Naruto walked into the forest with such an innocent look, as if he didn't know that all the ninja were around him. He could feel their chakra, the smell of their sweat, and hear their heartbeat because they thought they had an advantage. Kabuto came out of the bushes to approach Naruto directly. Hello Naruto, said Kabuto. Kabuto, said Naruto, is your master a pedophile sent you here? He did, stated Kabuto. He heard about the power that you know he has and he wants it, right? Calmly answered Naruto, but first he turned to the forest and shouted, okay, you pathetic excuses of hunters, come out so I can see you. As if obeying the command, all the sent ninja appeared in front. Naruto Uzumaki, said the leader of the Leaf Hunters, you Herbie are under arrest for leaving Konoha and should be returned for execution. No, said the leader of the Kuma ninja, he needs to be returned to Kuma so we can spread his power throughout our village. You are both wrong, said Ka, as if he was going to be sent to the Sound Village so that Urukai Maru could take the power that belonged to him. The indigenous NSA among the Leaf Hunters said nothing because they did not want to blow their cover. The teams continued to argue until they were silenced by a sudden change in power. They discovered that the energy was coming from Naruto. Why should I not respond to your orders? said Naruto, forming a chakra ball in his hand. How about I don't go with any of you? Lightning-style thunder ball. Naruto unleashed an electrical attack on Kabuto, who easily dodged it, but the sound ninja who was behind him was not so lucky. He was shocked and burned to ashes. The leaf hunters tried to grab him, but Naruto wished for the trees. The tree branches came to life, fell down and either pierced their hearts or hit them in the head. Crushing was the ninja Kuma. They suffered the same fate, only Naruto made him clench his fists and crushed them like insects. The ninja's sound grabbed him, but Naruto did the last thing they expected. He took out the Twilight Eye and, using the power of the Sharingan, burned them all with black flames. Now only the leaders remained. Naruto met them with his flaming Twilight Eye. Now I want headquarters, return to your village, Naruto said. His voice became dark and angry, and tell your leaders that if they come for me again, they will face the power of the Dragon Prince. In fear, the leaders fled for their lives, each of them headed in different directions in their village. They knew they had to deliver a message to their leaders. The leader of the hunters reached Konoha first. He ran straight to the council chambers. Right now they were deciding how to make the Uchiha stronger so that he would fight for them again and be able to kill Naruto. What is it? Tsunade asked the leader when he burst through the door. We found him, said the leader. And you killed him? The pink-haired woman from the council exclaimed joyfully. No, said the hunter, he killed us. They all gasped. He controlled the land around us, the man whispered, clearly scared. The trees came to life and killed my people, he lamented. The Dragon Prince. The entire council was clearly shocked by the power Naruto now had, and they had a feeling that things would only get worse. At the academy, Hand was teaching a lesson when a large column of smoke appeared in the middle of the room. When it cleared, a small dragon-like creature appeared. It was built like a dragon, but it had no wings. The children screamed and some of the other teachers jumped back in fear. You and Hand? It asked in a deep, rough voice. Yes, answered Hand. Get away from that thing before it kills you, Hand, shouted the teacher. My master, the Dragon Prince, wanted me to give you this, said Beast, taking something that was wrapped. Hand took the bundle from the dragon's tail. He camouflaged himself in the wall and slowly got out of windows unnoticed. What is this? Maru asked his sensei. Is this the headband I gave him when he finished? Sadly, answered the Hand. The feeling only got worse when he saw a large scratch that crossed it. Meanwhile, in the village of sounds, the enraged Orochimaru pinned Kabuto to the wall. He learned of Kabuto's failure, however. He was intrigued to use the power of the Sharingan arrow. Maru, let go of Kabuto. Get out of my sight, he ordered Kabuto, and did just that. There in the village of leaves, the dragon was still there. He was still camouflaged to easily search the ground without being noticed. He examined the shinobi area until he found an empty space. He looked around to make sure no one was looking at this place and began to dig. His kind was good at this. Since this was a type of dragon that did not have wings, his kind was especially good at running fast and digging underground. He dug until he found a large pocket in the ground. In the pocket was a large complex. In the center of the courtyard was the symbol of the Namikaze symbol. The lizard dug around until it found a large vault. Using its powerful claws, it tore through the metal like through glass. Once inside, it discovered a large number of scrolls. The dragon took human form and sealed the scrolls in its hand. Then it took out a scroll similar to the Namika scroll, only with a fireproof seal on it. It took the form of a dragon again. Now the seal was on the dragon's front paw. Before the beast left, the dragon released a powerful burst of flame and burned down the entire complex. It camouflaged itself again, surfaced, and then ran as fast as it could towards the exit of the village with a grin on its scaly face. Later, several native Anbu descended from the hole they dug and found that the complex had burned down. They searched the area for anything that could have survived the fire. What they didn't know was that dragon fire is much stronger than normal, and everything, even if bricks and stones, had burned in the fire in the end. They found the scroll the dragon had left. They sighed and took it with themselves. Later, this is all they had? Danza asked. This scroll? Yes, sir, said the member of the The fire destroyed everything. Danza raised an eyebrow. How can something catch fire underground? Danza was surprised out loud. Danza sighed and left. He went to the Uchiha district. He found Sasuke and handed over the scroll. What is this? Sasuke asked. The scroll Namikaze, answered the old battle hawk. It will help you against Naruto. Sasuke smirked. With the power of Namikaze he could easily defeat Naruto. Sasuke took the scroll and opened it. As soon as he did, a boxing glove attached to a spring fired and hit Sasuke right in the face. When Sasuke stood up, he found a note to the one who opened this scroll. You will not get your hands on the power of the Namikaze clan. It belongs to our master and only our master, so go and find some other way to become stronger. With hatred, Earth Dragons. PS If you are reading this, Sasuke Naruto our master. Sasuke growled SMKA in note and throwing it away. You will pay for this, Naruto, he shouted. Meanwhile, Naruto was standing at Zabuza and Haku's graves. Naruto knew he would need help fighting the hidden leaf. Even with his power he had to find a way to make them shudder. You who died protecting some treasure, Naruto said slowly, holding out his hands. You who died to avenge her by the will of the kami, I command you wake up. The graves shook, and then from the graves Zabuza and Haku rose again, were alive. Zabuza exhaled. How? Haku asked. Then she noticed Naruto. You. She said she was shocked that this guy was able to resurrect her, but she also blushed from how handsome he was now. How are we alive? Zabuza asked him. I'll tell you everything. Zhao dinner. Naruto said, leading them to Taz's house. When they listened to Naruto's story, Zabuza looked really whipped like Haku. They did all this with a child. Zabuza growled. Jima and the sword on his Zanbata disgustingly spat out Haku. She knew how much pain Naruto was in, but her pain was not at all not the same. At that moment the dragon announced his presence. Everyone except Naruto screamed when they saw him. They looked a little shocked when he bowed to Naruto. What it was? Naruto asked the beast. My prince, said the dragon. Gama sent me on a mission to give the leaf your bandage, showing them that you had no intention of returning to them. He also asked me to get this. He unsealed the scrolls on his leg and they fell out. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw them. The symbol of the Namikaze clan. Baguette will come in a few days, said the dragon. Shocked Naruto. Farewell my young prince. With these words the dragon disappeared, leaving a shocked Naruto and company. Part 5 Family Reunion. Naruto studied the scrolls left for him by the dragon. He saw that these were the 2 moves that the 4th Hagi made. Body Flicker and Flight of the Thunder God. Draga abandoned the techniques last night and today Baguette was supposed to arrive. Naruto guessed that they were going to give away the secrets of the Sasuke clan. To tell the truth, it angered him. This guy betrayed the village and they were going to give him the techniques of the most powerful clan in Konoha. There was a knock at the door. I'll open it, said Inri, getting up to open the door. When he opened it, he saw a large man with eyes similar to Naruto's. Are you a Baguette? Inri asked the boy. Yes, that's right, the man answered. Good, said Inari. Then the older brother shouted. This guy from Bahamut is here. Bahamut volume and saw Naruto sitting on the couch with 2 techniques in his hands. I see you received gifts from my servants. The Dragon King grinned. Yes, why did you send me this? Naruto asked. 3 goddesses gave me knowledge of every jutsu on the planet, but they couldn't teach you everything. Baguette said, these are unusual jutsu, the ones that Minato Namika made himself, but why did you give them to me? Naruto asked with slight curiosity. For 2 reasons. Gamu answered. Firstly, they were going to give them to the Uchiha. This would destroy the clan's name, and secondly, they belong to you by birthright. My reason for Naruto screaming is that they didn't tell him. The Dragon King thought. It started on the day of the attack. Kyuubi, explained Baguette, on the day you were born your father was the hero of Konoha Minato Namikaze. He married your mother Kushina Uzumaki. On the day the Kyuubi attacked Minato he fought it to defeat it. He sealed it inside you. Why did he seal it inside me? Asked Naruto. He thought the village would perceive you as a hero for keeping the fox at bay. What he didn't see was that the villagers were afraid of the demon you kept, that they would do the opposite and try to hurt you. He said it with sadness in his voice. So what happened to them? Asked Naruto. To know about your parents. How do you know your father died? Sealed the fox inside you, said Baguette. However, your mother was tricked by Urukai Maru into thinking you died. Now she is Kag. The village of the hidden whirlpool. Where is this village? Asked Naruto. Not too far, just a few miles from here, answered the Dragon King. Are you going to visit her? It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Naruto answered, standing up and heading to the door. Be careful, the Dragon King shouted after him. The ninja of the whirlpool are incredibly strong. Naruto ran out the door. Baguette sat on the couch for a few moments before Naruto returned. West, said Baguette when Naruto opened his mouth to ask him what country the village is in. Thank you is all Naruto said, running out the door and heading west. Naruto ran for what seemed like hours until he felt something. He stopped abruptly. He heard footsteps in the forest and feeling that he was not alone. Almost as soon as he stopped the bunch of kunai, Naruto turned to the skin heading towards him and shouted, wind style gusty wind. A powerful gust of wind hit the shuriken, stopped their movement and they fell. On the forest platform the ninja decided to show themselves and they jumped out of their hiding places. Naruto noticed that they looked like the NSA, only on their headbands there was an image of a whirlpool. You guys are from the village of the whirlpool, aren't you? Asked Naruto, pretending to be a fool. We, said the captain of the NBU. What business is it of yours? I have business with your cage, said Naruto. Why do you have anything to do with her? Asked the captain. I have news regarding her son, said Naruto, sensing the surprise of the captain and his team. Come with us, ordered the captain. With Naruto in tow, the team went to the village by the waterfall. Naruto saw that this place was very similar to his own village, except that there were more academy buildings and instead of a monument, they were immortalized in green diamond with their names under them. Naruto noticed that the academy tested not only academics, they tested ninjutsu, ento, taijutsu, and kinza. Apparently, they trained everyone who wanted to be masters in what they wanted to be. The Anbu lead Naruto to a large building that practically says Cage works here. They lead him inside past the senior's desk into an office where someone was sitting behind them, his chair turned towards them. Kagi-sama, said the NB captain, this stranger says he knows something about your child. What about? A female voice asked him. He's been dead for years. What if I tell you that it's not so? Asked Naruto. What if I tell you that you were tricked into thinking that he was dead? He felt shock from the woman standing in front of him. What if I tell you that he's standing right here? Kushina turned to face him for the first time. Naruto saw his mother's face. She had pale skin and long red hair. Her eyes were a sparkling green that glowed with the experience of a fighter. When Kushina looked at the boy in front of her, she saw the face of her late husband and Naruto. She asked, stuttering. "Hello mom," said Naruto, smiling. Naruto. Kushina burst into tears, jumping over the table and hugging her son down her cheeks. Tears of happiness rolled down and the NBU were shocked. They also had a son there, Kagi, who was also dead. Now they saw that he had a resemblance to Minato. They probably never guessed it was him because of the golden eyes. Kushina hugged her son with the intention of never letting go, but she had to because sooner or later Naruto needed to breathe. "Anbu," said Kushina. "Call the rest of the family, they will kill when UVI sees you." Anbu left to take the one Kushina sent for. A few minutes later the Anbu returned with 3 people. The first was a red-haired girl in a red shirt, long baggy black jeans and a pistol in a holster under her arm. The second was a blonde with pigtails. She was wearing a green shirt and baggy blue jeans on her belt. She had a katana and 2 revolvers. She and the other girl looked about the same age as Naruto. The third was a man. "Yeah. Creepy like Minato," well said the red-haired one, a little irritated. It was Beta. Her voice died down when she noticed Naruto. The other girl looked ready to faint, and the man looked like he saw a ghost as soon as the shock passed. The red-haired one rushed forward and hugged him tightly. The BLL him for Sasuke even when he betrayed the village for power. At the end of the conversation they all looked like they were ready to start a war with the Leaf Village right then and there. "These dirty rotten good-for-nothing," Raya growled. Naruto remained calm with an expression of absolute rage on her face, and Rasha looked ready to grab a kunai, go find Kakashi and cut the Sharinganai out of his socket. Kushina was ready to burst with anger. After everyone calmed down a bit, Naruto asked about something that was bothering her brother. She said, "You said that you were left to die. How did you survive? Will you want to go to jail for this?" said Naruto. "It's a long story." They all sat down when Naruto started telling them what happened after his betrayal. "Kakashi Cyclops left me to die, yes, but when I was dying the Akatsuki members found me." They all gasped at these words. Naruto continued, "However, before they could remove the Kyuubi from my body I was saved by 3 goddesses." "3 goddesses?" asked Raya. "For example, came Shinigami and Toz." "Yes," answered Naruto. "They saw how I was treated and they got tired of it. They found me and healed my wounds. After that they gave me several gifts." "What kind of people were they?" asked Arashi. He was clearly curious. Naruto listed them on his fingers. "Kami gave me the ability to heal any injury, be it body, mind or soul. Shinigami gave me the power to inflict any injury, and Toz gave me the power to control the earth's elements and be able to understand all types of animals. She also enhanced my perception of where they are equal to animals or superior to them. I understand that's not all," said Kushina. "No," said Naruto. "They also gave me knowledge of all the jutsu on the planet and made so I don't need to use hand signs to use them. They also gave dojutsu." "What to ask jutsu?" asked Arashi, now really interested. Naruto closed his eyes and opened them again. Everyone gasped at the sight of this. Naruto's eyes changed color from gold to green, the whites turned black, and for the constantly changing color, a rose-shaped star appeared in the pupil in the middle of the white compass. "It's called the Twilight Eye." Naruto explained. "He has the powers of the Sharingan, Byakugan and Rinnegan. They also took all the Biju contained in the Jinchuriki and combined them with me, so I have all their powers, and the people from whom they came are still alive and they still have the powers that were given to them." Everyone looked like they were ready to faint. They had no idea that someone had such power. "But that's not all," Naruto said. "They also sent me to a new world. There I founded my own village. Not only did I train with the Dragon King Bogota, now the first can use magic and use summons that don't require chakra." At that moment, with all the information that they were given, they did the only thing they could do. They fainted. "And brother," Naruto said out loud. A few hours later everyone woke up and they were eager to see, "Does Naruto really have the power he talked about? Why don't you fight?" Naruto said to Kushina, surprised. Naruto and his mother headed to the academy. She informed the teacher that she was going to fight this young man. She didn't say that it was her son because she wanted to save this little shocker for later. They both got into a kimono stance and rushed at each other. People who were watching would be surprised that a small child was able to keep up with Cage. Naruto imitated his mother in her every move. Naruto suddenly jumped back and created 3 clones, each with a sword. All Naruto rushed forward and everyone shouted the crescent dance. All the clones rushed forward and brought their swords down on Kushina. Luckily for her, she managed to block the moves with her own sword. After she threw the clones back, she made hand gestures and shouted the Shadow Clone Jutsu. 3 more Kushinas appeared. Naruto smiled as he and his clones fought against Kushina and her clones. Eventually, the clones dispersed and Naruto and Kushina jumped back. Kushina made hand gestures and shouted water style. A water bullet formed in her hands and she launched it at Naruto in response. Naruto did not move right before the water hit him. The ground in front of him flew up and formed a wall in front of him. Blocking the attack, Naruto leaned over the wall and shouted lightning style. A thunderball, a ball of lightning formed in Naruto's hands and he fired it at Kushina, who barely had time to dodge. Unfortunately, the tree that was right behind her was not so lucky. The poor tree. Kushina was about to strike back, but Naruto got ahead of her. He focused on the power that the baguette gave him and shouted the roar of a fire dragon. The golden energy around him turned fiery red and for a moment turned into a dragon. Then Naruto drew in a large amount of air and released it, resulting in a powerful roar that shook the earth and a powerful fire charge flew at Kushina. She barely dodged it and the movement was directed at her hand. Fortunately, the flame went out immediately after it passed Kushina. Kushina would have done something else but Naruto used Gaara's powers and wrapped her arms and legs in sand. "Do you obey?" Naruto asked her. "Yes," Kushina sighed. The students were in complete shock, as was the family. Hearing what Naruto was capable of was one thing, but seeing it was something else entirely. "Good fight, my boy," Kushina said as the sand surrounded her limbs. "Donkey. Thank you, Mom," Naruto said later that day. Kushina stood before her people. With her family, including her. "Naruto," the people of the whirlpool said, "as you know. My son passed away many years ago when the Leaf Village was attacked by a Devo." The villagers switched among themselves. "I have since learned that it was false information." The villagers gasped when they heard. "This is my son who survived," Kushina continued, "and was forced to suffer at the hands of the Hidden Leaf. 3 years ago, he was betrayed and left to die. From the ashes of this pain, he rose and took the form of a warrior with incredible strength. Today, my son, Naruto Uzumaki, is with us." The villagers welcomed this. They knew about Naruto and some of them were very upset when they found out that he was dead. For them it was like an early Christmas. However, he can't stay, Kushina said sadly. He founded his own village, the village of hidden magicians. We made an alliance and they will forever be our allies, but the hidden leaf has fallen from my favor. If you come across any leaf ninja, kill them so they can know that the whirlpool is alive and that we are not their friends. The villagers welcomed they could get a little revenge for that stain they called the village. Suddenly an Anbu was next to her Lord Cage. He said, "We captured a man who is prowling around our borders, bring him here." Kushina said, upset that someone interrupted something like that. The NSA put forward a man who is sniffing around again. The Sage Pervert Part 6 Lost Love and New Lovers. Lost Love and New Lovers. Gyre. Hello, Naruto said a little nervously. Sanin Toad, what are you doing here? The Sage Pervert asked Naruto, clearly not surprised. I heard that you passed this way and that you stopped at some mysterious village, so I decided to stop by and see you, said the old sage. Yes. That's right, said Kushina, making the old man look at him. Kushina exhaled. Jiro, you're alive. I was. Old men grumbled Kushina. Some of the NSA were about to carry out Kushina's previous orders when Naruto stopped them. Leave this one alive. He said, I want him to pass a message to Konoha. He lifted Jiro and looked into his eyes. Listen carefully. Naruto said slowly, I want you to tell the council that they will see me again soon and tell them that when I return all who hurt me will be crushed like the bugs they are, and tell the Aburame clan that I didn't mean to offend anyone. I tried to get my point across well, said Jiro. He knew that when the time came for Naruto to get revenge he wouldn't want to stand in his way. And there was one more thing the old man said to Naruto right before he pulled his hand back and he punched Sanin in the face with incredible force. I understand this is because I wasn't there for you like I should have. Jiraiya groaned, standing up and clutching his face. No, Naruto corrected. It was for throwing me off a cliff when we were training and for taking all my money when we were looking for Tsunade. This is for not being there for me when I should have. Naruto grabbed the old man by the collar, threw him into the air, and then kicked him hard in the family jewels. Then he punched him in the face, which sent him flying out of the village. Now go give my message, Naruto shouted. And tell Hinata I said hello. Jiraiya got his, but before anyone else did anything to him or his gift from the kami, he threw you off a cliff, Naruka asked. He's an idiotic teacher, Naruto answered, shrugging. He spent a few more hours in the village with his family. When the day ended, Paul formed an alliance with the Dragon Village, Naruto's new village. In another world after imprisonment after the agreement, he returned to Wave. Meanwhile, in Konoha, in the council chambers, Sa put forward demands that angered the head of the shinobi. What do you want? Sumi growled at the arrogant little runt. I want you to teach me your secrets, said Sasuke. Sasuke knew that he wasn't strong enough to kill Naruto yet, so he tried to force the shinobi clans to pass on their special jutsu, and it didn't work. What makes you think that we'll give you anything? Said the angry and Monaka. I'm an Uchiha. Sas answered, I deserve to know the secrets of the clans, and after I learn your secrets, I will take your daughters. At that moment, some members of the clan had to hold back Sumi, Dan Nagashi, Inka, and Heshi from going down to their roots and killing him on the spot. This is a ridiculous request, said the head of the Abram clan. Tell me his name, please, I need them so I can revive my clan, said Sas. In truth, he only wanted them to produce strong Uchiha children that he could control, and after they could no longer reproduce he simply used them as his personal toys. He truly deserves to revive his clan, said the pink-haired council member. Shut your mouth, Haruna. Sumi barked. Things probably would have gotten even worse if Gyre hadn't appeared in the cloud of smoke. Gyre said, Haru smirking, I see you finally came to your senses and agreed to train the great Uchiha. Several members of the shinobi clan groaned quietly when they heard this is what was wrong with the civilian council. And the advisors, they will never know. I'm not going to train anyway, this is spoiled by rhodium, said Gyre. Anyway, I have a message from Naruto. The entire council turned to listen. He says he will appear before you soon, and when he does he will crush everyone who hurt him like the insignificant insects there, said Gyre, causing sighs from the council. Then Gyre said, and he didn't want to be bitten. The insect was an insult to the Abram clan. He's just trying to make his point with the delivered message. The Sannin toad disappeared later. The heads of some clans were currently meeting in the Hyuga complex. What are we going to do? Asked Dien Na P. I don't want my daughter to be married to that spoiled shorty. Neither do I, growled Sumi. I would rather have my daughter turned into a breeding animal than given to that Nick Chemno piece of trash. I agree with you on that. Sumi said he didn't want his daughters to get hurt. He knew that Hinata liked Naruto and Hanabi was still too young to get married, plus what the Uchiha knew how to do with their women was just scary to think about. After a few hours of conversation they managed to come to a common agreement. They called their daughters. All the girls arrived quickly to Heshi's surprise. Hanabi wasn't there. Where is Hanabi? Asked Heshi. She's busy, said Hinata. I think she might have found new guy. It's been true for the last few months. She met Kahuna Hamura at first. These two did not get along, but over time, they began to like each other. The guy managed to ask her out on a date a few days ago and since then they have been dating anyway, said Sumi. We have a small problem. Sasuke? Asked Hana. It was more of a statement than a question. Sasuke said, what does he want now? Ino asked personally. She was starting to wonder what her so-called friend Sakura saw in him. He wanted to know the clan's secrets, said Hiyashi, hearing a low growl from the girls. And you girls, as soon as he finished this sentence, an expression of disgust appeared on their faces. We came up with a way to get you out of his reach, Dan said, tapping the girl's interest. What is this? Tenten asked. However, she already knew the answer. We plan to send you to Wave so you can be with Naruto, said Enchi. Do you want us to go be with Naruto? Hana asked. The clan heads nodded in response. The girls were silent until Hana broke the silence. Yes, she exclaimed. The other girls smiled happily. Each other. This caused several shocked looks from their parents. What did all this mean? Asked Hiyashi. As you know, Naruto wasn't really the most popular among girls. Hinata began. Except for the chosen one. Fyus, you all have feelings for him? Asked Sumi, shocked looking at her daughter. Yes, said Hana, but how did you all fall in love with him? Asked Hiyashi, really wondering how Naruto managed to make these women fall in love with him. Well, said Hana, once I saw him training. He trained until his chakra was depleted when Naruto beat them up and took me to the hospital because of my injuries, so that's how it happened, said Inoichi smiling. But then he became curious. Wait, if you liked him then why did you go after Sasuke? I only did it because it connected me and Sakura, answered Ino. Sakura was one of my only friends. I wanted to stay close to her. Inoichi nodded. When Ino was younger she was quiet and shy, that's why she didn't have many friends. Sakura was one of the few people she could call a friend. That was until recently. My case is the same as Ino, said Tenten. Dad, remember when almost no one came into our store and we almost had to close it? Her father nodded. Well, I told Naruto about it and he brought Hagi to the store. After that things started going again. Well, he saved our business, plus he also has more heart than anyone I know. He spared Niji despite what he did to Hinata. I find it very admirable. Tenten's eyes lit up when she thought about it. My mind started at the academy, said Hinata. During training she managed to cope with her stuttering. I always saw how Naruto didn't give up. It was my inspiration to become stronger so I could prove myself to him. Hiyashi smiled when he heard this. Naruto not only made Niji change but also made Hinata turn blue. He was an amazing boy. So when we go to him? Asked Hana smiling. We're going to squeeze tonight, said Heshi. The girls went to pack for the trip. If they had looked they would have seen a chameleon appear on the wall and slip out the window. That night the families prepared for their daughter's departure. The girls hugged their parents and said goodbye. However, before they could reach the main gate they were stopped by a group of NSA native. Anbu, to be exact. The leader was wearing a dog mask and had gravity-defying silver hair. Guess who? What are you doing? Asked Dien, pulling out his sword. On the orders of the council. The leader, obviously Kakashi. These women should be married to the great Uchiha only over our dead bodies. Sumi growled at him, flexing her claws. Just at the moment when the NBU were ready to move and strike, one of them heard a low growl from a nearby alley. He came closer to get a closer look when a large claw shot and dragged him into the darkness. The others heard his scream and looking back saw that the Anbu disappeared. The others were also confused by what happened. Hello, said a new voice. They all turned to face him and saw a tall man. Who are you? Asked Kakashi. The man did not answer. Instead he began to glow bright gold. The energy formed a dragon which growled threateningly at the group. I would move away if I were you, said the man as the dragon rushed forward. Only Kakashi's allies and Naruto got out of the way before it hit. Kakashi got scared of this newcomer and ran away. Who are you? asked Sumi, impressed by the newcomer's abilities. Bagot, answered the man. The Dragon King. The man took his dragon form and descended down forward. He said, we have a long way to go and we have very little time. Where are we going? Asked Hinata. To see Naruto, answered the Dragon King. Meanwhile Insuni Timur was riding in the wind using her fan, while on her face there was a wide smile. She had a reason to be happy. A few years ago when she was in the village of Hidden Leaves, she encountered a blonde man. She noticed how strong and he was brave. After he helped her brother and her family, she fell in love with him. She just never had the courage to tell anyone. Well, she finally managed to tell Harry because her father Baki wanted her to marry some dude from another country because he saw that she was doing nothing. Blind idiot. She remembered what happened in the conversation she had with Gaara later. Memories that teary cried from what her father said. You heard me, said Big, because lately you haven't been of any use to the village. I will find a use for you. You will marry a rich man in The Godfather, thus we are acquired and there will be some use from you. Timur was furious. The only reason she hadn't been of any use to the village was because lately she hadn't been given any tasks. When Gaara and Kankura found out that she had to restrain them so they wouldn't kill their father. I can't believe he's doing this, said Timur on the edge of tears. On Kankura's face was written wrath. Agara Kazal was ready to go to his house and crush Bucky in the sand coffin. What are we going to do? Kankura thought out loud. We can't just go and kill Dad, plus we can't just up and leave the village. Maybe we can find a safe place where Timur could stay until we find a way out of this, Gaara said, wanting his sister to be safe. Tiri was deep in thought. She tried to think of who she could stay with. She thought of Konoha because it was the last place where it would occur to anyone to look. Then she remembered what they did to the boy who helped her family. She mentally smiled at the thought of Naruto, his eyes, his smile, everything about him. It was then she remembered what the three goddesses said. What about Naruto? She asked. He proved that he is an invaluable ally, said Gaara, projecting the situation a little. But I know, said a new voice out of nowhere. Who's there? Asked Kankura, reaching for one of his. The puppet servant of the Dragon Prince. Naruto, said the voice. My ally will bring you to him tonight. Be ready by midnight. After the voice finished they heard the sound of scales scratching stone and then there was silence. All three immediately prepared to leave. One day midnight came and all three found themselves in the desert. They wondered where this ally was when they saw something moving and heard a low growl. Suddenly the sand rose and flew in one direction. They followed it as fast as they could. The end of the flak Tiri slid on her fan. Gaara hovered in the cloud of sand and Kankura rode on it with him. While they walked on the sand, Tiri smirked, imagining the expression on their father's face when he realized that they had left the tower. Also became interested in how Naruto had changed in the 3 years he was gone. Naruto was sitting on the couch with Sally, Alexandra and Sarah. Naruto brought them from another world a few hours ago so they could meet women from his world. Spy Chameleon Bogota told him about what the girls were planning to do and what Sasuke was planning to do. Naruto was upset, but when he found out that all the girls liked him he softened up a bit. Then Naruto decided to bring other girls so that they could all meet in so that the girls from his village wouldn't be upset when they met and wouldn't say that he cheated on them. They also brought Carrie with them and it was funny considering what happened when she met Inri. Naruto chuckled at the memory flashback. Naruto had just opened a portal to his new village in another world. All the girls came out after the introduction. Carrie noticed Inari. Hello, I'm Carrie, she said, walking up to him. I'm Inari, he said, be a little nervous about talking to a girl. Maybe he was older but he still didn't have much experience when it came to girls his age. Carrie walked around looking at him as if he was of some interest. Inri was starting to feel a little uncomfortable under her gaze. Do you have a girlfriend? Carrie suddenly asked. No, Inari said slowly. Now you know, Carrie said, kissing him on the cheek. Inari reacted in the only way he knew how. He fainted. Pinkett giggled and dragged him to his room. Other people in the room burst out laughing, but he and Carrie both seemed a little flushed after learning what was going on in Naruto's new village. Naruto got up to go to the bathroom. Then they heard a knock on the door. I realized, Tazuna shouted. He got up and opened the door. He was shocked to see Hana, Hinata, Tenten, Ino, and Bahamut at the door. She looked a little upset when he noticed the Konoha headbands, but decided to let them in at their request. Bogota, who are you? Ino asked when she noticed the three girls on the couch. I'm Sally, she introduced herself. Sally stepped forward and introduced Alexandra and Sarah. It seemed they were all getting along. At that moment, there was another knock. This time Tsunami understood. She found Timura and her brothers at the door. She let them in and started wondering who these people were. The girls from another world were starting to get used to these new people. Kankura tried to flirt with all three, but in the end, only a red palm print remained on his face. Everyone was about to start asking questions when they heard a familiar voice. Hey, Tsunami, Naruto called from the hall. I think something is wrong. His voice broke off when he saw the people he knew. All the girls were enchanted when they saw how handsome Naruto had become. What's going on? Naruto asked. Some of the girls from Konoha and Suna looked in awe at the new Naruto who stood in front of them. Hinata, who had overcome her shyness, had a strong blush on her face. Tenten had hearts in her eyes, she looked at her with a wolfish grin. Ino had stars in her eyes. Timur was practically drooling. Seriously, what's going on? Naruto asked again since no one had answered his previous question. Hinata was the first to come out of her stupor. We're here to live with you, Naruto said, forcing Naruto to smile. She was about to explain why until Naruto stopped her. I know why you and the other Konoha girls are here, said Naruto turning to Timura, but I don't know why Timura is here. They were going to force her to marry some rich guy from another country because she hasn't done any missions lately, said Gaara, attracting Naruto's attention. He really is such a thorn, asked Naruto, receiving nods from the Suna brothers and sisters. Well, you can all stay here until everything is cleared up, said Tsunami, returning from the kitchen. Thank you, all the girls said at once. The rest of the night went pretty smoothly until Tenten didn't remember something. Naruto said. Naruto, she said when everyone was finishing dinner, you said you know why we came. How is that possible? You can thank the lizards that live around Konoha, said Naruto, receiving confused looks from the girls. Even the smallest lizards can be considered dragons, explained Baggett. I have several of these located throughout the hidden villages. Spy, which no one expected, said Gaara with obvious shock in his voice. Now we might want to go to bed, said Baggett, getting up from the table and looking at the clock. You girls start training tomorrow, but we don't need to train ninja while we hide, said Teary, receiving nods from the other girls who said that it was ninja training. Naruto chuckled without saying anything else. Naruto and the others went to bed, although the girls along with Roy and Kankura wondered what they would train the next morning. After breakfast, Baggett and Naruto lead the girls to a secluded part of the forest. Kankura and Gaara left after breakfast because they needed an explanation of what happened to their father. Gaara actually said that if he tried to find her and force her to marry someone, he would take care of it himself. In the world I come from, began Baggett, there are many beasts that roam the earth. These beasts are ruled by the king beneath them, or lords. I know that some people in the villages don't expect greatness from women, but in my case greatness, you can expect from the most insignificant things. What does this have to do with our training? Timur asked. Getting back to that, said the Dragon King, annoyed that she had interrupted him. Below me are the Dragon Lords with whom I established contact a few days ago. Some of them agreed to train you. Really? Ino asked. Yes, Baggett answered. The training will last about a month, but Naruto's training took 3 years, said Hana. Yes, said Baggett, but the king rules the Lord, so my training took longer. Besides, he still had a lot to learn. So who will train us? Hinata asked. She became curious about who she would be training with for the next month. Good question, said Bahamut. I based your elemental affinity on who will train you. Hinata said. You will be trained by Alira, the lord of the water dragons. You will find her at the eastern sea. Ino said. You will be trained by Argas, the lord of the earth dragons. You will find him in the great canyons. Teary said. You will be trained by Jordan, the lord of the wind dragons. You will find him in the southern, and Tenten you will train with Kareem, the lord of thunder dragons. He can be found in the northern mountains. Who will train me? Asked Hana. Said Baggett. You will not be trained by a dragon. Your training will take place with the Lord of Wolves, Sabe. Since you trained with dogs, you will find him in the northern forests. Hana smiled. She was going to be trained by the Volgo Lord. Hey wait, suddenly said Tenten. Why don't those 3 need to train with us in another world? Because, answered Baggett, they trained a little with Naruto when he trained with me. The girls looked at each other. It seemed that they all got a chance to become strong. They just hoped that the training of their new teachers was not so terrible. When you are ready, I will transfer you to the part of my world where you will find them. You will train there for a month, but here it will only take a few hours, said Baggett, catching the confused looks of the girl. How is this possible? Asked Ino. The portal that will take you there will return you back in a few hours, so everything will be as if you never left. Ready? Asked Naruto, drawing his sword. All the girls nodded. Naruto raised his sword and lowered it. His swing punched a hole in the air and opened a portal. Then Naruto swung it a few more times, opening different portals to different places. All the girls entered theirs, and the portals closed. And now we wait, Naruto said, sitting down on the ground in another world. Hinata walked along a long beach. She looked around for her coach, and she wasn't very lucky. She walked a good quarter of a mile and didn't see anything. She was ready to give up when she saw the water bubbling near the shore. A few seconds later, the water exploded, and something flew to the shore. The force of the water made Hinata fall on her butt when the water receded. Hinata saw something. It took her breath away. A dragon was hovering above her. Unlike the dragon form of the praying mantis, this one had a long snake-like body and green fins on the sides of the head, on the edge of the tail and long on the back. Its scales were dark blue and the eyes were dark green. Are you Hinata? The dragon asked in a feminine motherly tone. Are you Alira? Hinata asked in a trembling voice. So you are the one who should I train, said the dragon, looking at her. Not bad for a little girl. A whirlpool arose and in the place of the large beast a beautiful woman appeared. She had fair skin, long green hair, and here the eyes were still green. She was wearing something like a regular bikini with a belt wrapped around her stomach that covered her left leg. She was wearing a pair of blue sandals that caught Hinata's attention. So these are small swords that she crossed on her back. Well, shall we begin? She asked, still using a motherly tone. In another part of the world, Timari walked through a deep green forest. She was wondering if there would be a dragon lord to eat it or not. When she found a large field, she felt a gust of wind, then a loud crack was heard. She turned around and saw a large dragon. This one was built just like the Bogota dragon, except it was a little smaller. It had jade-colored scales with yellow membranes on its wings. At the end of its tail, the creature had small bones. You must be Jordan, said Tiri, a little nervous at the sight of the large beast in front of her. And you must be that girl, Tiri said Jordan. His voice was calm and soft. It seemed like a light breeze could carry his voice away. Another gust of wind blew and the dragon disappeared. In its place, a tall man appeared. He was dressed in a green robe, brown leather boots, and a silver headband. He had a long wooden spear hanging on his back. Well, shall we begin? He asked, still in a calm voice. A few miles away, she walked through the forest looking for her. She began to wonder if he would ever appear. Suddenly she heard something running through the undergrowth. She looked around until suddenly she was three furry objects pounced. When she opened her eyes, she smiled widely. They were her three battle partners from Konoha. She didn't take them with her because they didn't have time to get them. How did you three get here? She asked. The three dogs, I brought them here, answered in a deep rough voice, and saw a large silver wolf. She was surprised at how intimidating the wolf looked. He had silver fur that shone in the sun and dark yellow eyes with a wild expression. Judging by their reaction to you, I would say that you are the same girl Khan that Baggett sent for me to train, said the wolf. Khan simply nodded. There was a flash of light and the wolf disappeared. In his place stood a man with disheveled brown hair and wild eyes. He was wearing mostly black leather boots. He was wearing gloves with claws. Let's begin, shall we? Said Saber, flexing his claws. Meanwhile, Tenten was having a bad time. Currently she was trying to climb mountain without any hiking equipment and frankly began to doubt whether this training was even worth it. She continued to climb higher and higher until she was almost at the top. She was very upset when she discovered that her trainer was not there at all. Where are you, you overgrown flying Gib Khan? She screamed angrily. Big mistake. Suddenly the clouds darkened and purple lightning struck. One of the discharges hit the rocks right in front of her. When the smoke cleared, Tenten's eyes widened like saucers. A large dragon stood in front of her. This one was built like a Baggett, only smaller, but a little larger than Jordan. His scales were dark purple, and his eyes sparkled bright yellow. He had 3 bone spikes on the end of his tail. What did he call me? The Thunder Dragon asked angrily in response to the insult that Tenten threw out earlier. Sorry, she said. I'm sorry, in a tone of voice. I was a little upset when I didn't find you here after I climbed the mountain to get here perfectly, said the dragon, rolling his eyes. A sound was heard, a flash of thunder, and the dragon turned into a man. He was tall and thin. He was wearing a purple robe and brown leather boots. He had long black hair and deep eyes that seemed to burn through your skull. Behind his back he had a long wide sword. Do you want to start training or what? Asked Karishma. Ino slowly walked along the canyon. She hoped that soon she would find her trainer on the other side. She thought that she would be thirsty since she did not have water with her. Do you think she would want to drink since she did not have water with her? Seriously, anyway, she began to think that she would not show up when she heard a loud knock on her head. She turned towards the noise and felt the ground shake. Then a large shadow fell on her. She turned around and saw a large golden dragon. This one was really different from Bogota. He was more massive in build and he did not have wings. At the end of his tail was a spiked club and his legs looked strong enough to cause an earthquake if he stomped. So I understand, you are the girl from Ino that Baggett told me about? Argas asked. His voice was a baritone and sounded like a rumble. Yes, that's right, said Ino, slightly frightened by the beast. A golden flash and now a large man stood in front of her. He had brown hair and a long brown beard. He was dressed in bronze armor that covered his chest, shoulder, shins, and in front of his shoulder. He had a large battle axe hanging on his shoulder. Let's begin, said Argas. His voice was still deep in human form. Over the next month, the girls learned a great many things. They learned how to summon their affinity and how to use them in battle. They also received weapons that matched the style they learned. Tiri had to leave her fan behind because it matched what Jordan taught her. Hannah received gloves with claws that were capable of piercing the strongest armor. Tenten received a long sword that she could wield with one hand. Hinata received 2 swords like Alara Ino. She pulled out an axe similar to the one Argas had, only it was a little smaller. So she didn't have to strain to lift it, although some of Argas' training included strength training so she wouldn't resist. They all learned incredible things. But what they learned last blew their minds. What can I do now? Timering, I give you at least 4 killer moves that can be used to either harm an enemy or heal yourself and a comrade. All you have to do is focus on the power you now possess and let it flow through you. The armor also increases your abilities tenfold. Can Naruto summon armor? Timur asked. Yes, Jordan answered. His armor had become more powerful since the Dragon King gave it to him. Meanwhile, the girls and their trainers were giving the same speech. They said that they were shocked that they were able to get a weapon that could increase their abilities. It really should help them in the future. Then, almost simultaneously, the lords opened portals to the girls' world and they left. When they all passed, they found Oboma, grinning at Hinata, smiled slightly at the tree and walked up to Naruto. She leaned over and gently pressed her lips to his. She was about to leave when Naruto's hand came up and held her head in place. Hinata groaned as they continued kissing each other. The girls noticed that Hinata's toes were skewed, so they knew it was a good number. In the end, the two of them went out to get some air. Hinata blushed deeply and walked up to the girls. "So, what did we miss?" Hana asked. "Nothing special." Naruto answered her. A rustling sound was heard in the bushes and something came out from under the forest. There was AP. Ino noticed that they looked like the dragon that trained her, only they were smaller and not so bulky. They stepped forward and bowed to Naruto. Then they pointed with their tails at the seals on their backs. It was then that they released what was on their backs. Each of them fell down their bodies. The girls didn't recognize any of them, but Tiri recognized one I saw a few days ago. "Hey, is that the sound ninja from the retrieval mission?" She exhaled loudly. "Naru, what are you doing with them?" asked Hana. "I'll show you." This is all that Naruto said. Naruto took out his sword and shouted. Healing flames, golden fire burst from the blade and covered 5 ninja. When it went out they all stood up and some started coughing. "What was that?" asked the red-haired Tayuya. "I have no idea," said Kitamaru. "A guy with many arms and my stomach," groaned a man of compact build. "Jiro, it feels like I was hit by a destructive sword." "And what's the matter?" said Ukin. His brother Sukin, who was currently on the back of his Uko, was just starting to wake up because he was looking in the other direction. He noticed something with Kimimaru from the albino team. "Are you okay, Kimimaru?" asked Sukin. "I feel strange," answered the albino. "I feel different. You can thank me for this," Naruto said, letting the group know about the presence of other groups. Yujirobo shouted. He tried to activate his cursed seal, but to his surprise it didn't work. "When I healed you of your wounds," Naruto explained, "I removed those seals. I also cured the albino lung disease." "But how?" asked Kimimaru, clearly shocked by this new information. "I was told that no human medicine or jutsu can cure my condition. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not quite human," said Naruto. "Well, at least we don't have to work for that stupid snake anymore," said Kitamaru Shokirova at people outside of his group. "I thought you liked working for him," Tenten said, surprised. "Are you kidding?" asked Teria, standing up. "That ___ treated us like we were nothing but dirt and he used us as scapegoats. Plus with those seals on us he could easily kill us. How do you think Kimimaru endured that lung disease?" Naruto mentally growled that he knew that the snake Sanin was an evil person and that he had a sadistic streak, but he didn't understand that everything was so bad. "Tell me," said Naruto, squatting down, "how would you like to take revenge on him and that little lucky of his?" At the thought of taking revenge on his snake using his former boss, the 5 former sound ninja smirked. And evil sparkles appeared in their eyes. Except for Kimi, he never shows emotions. Part in Dragon's Verses. Sound. Several days had passed since the girls finished their training with the Dragon Lords and the former Sound 5 were returned from that spanking. The Sound Ninja had regained their strength and they stated that they really couldn't wait to take revenge on their former employer. The plan they had devised was simple: break into the Sound Village and destroy everyone who stands in their way until they get to Urukai Maru. When they get to him, the Sound Ninja will beat him up a bit and then Naruto will attack. To be honest, if the snake hadn't forced Sas to flee the village, Naruto wouldn't have been exiled. So, in a sense, Naruto was also getting some payback in the Sound Village. Everything was pretty quiet at the moment. The Orochimaru was planning to go to the village and pick up Sasuke so he could use him as a body. Kabuto was busy in the lab and all the ninja were busy. Suddenly out of nowhere a thick fog rolled in. "What's going on?" asked the snake. When the fog enveloped the Sound Village was not far from the sea, so there shouldn't be any fog. The Orochimaru suddenly had a very bad feeling in his stomach, but he brushed it off because of the sweet and sour chicken that Kabuto ate for lunch. Said to the Orochimaru, "Look at this." "Yes sir," Orochimaru said to Kabuto. After receiving the order, Kabuto along with the team of ninja ran out into the fog. They all looked around, but the fog was so thick it was hard to see where everything was. All the Sound Ninja looked around until they noticed a glimmer of movement when they all fired. Because of this, only Kabuto remained in place. He suddenly had a feeling of doom in his stomach. First the Sound Ninja looked around until he heard a voice. "Lungs, liver, heart, kidneys," said the voice. "These are just a few ways to die." The ninja looked around in fear until he felt someone's presence behind him. He turned around and before he could scream, a large sword came down on his neck. The second of them heard the sound of a falling body and ran towards it. He was shocked when he saw the body of one of his comrades without a head. The ninja suddenly felt someone's presence. He turned around just in time for the rain to beat down. Shinbun hit him with deadly accuracy. The last 4 of the team heard a cry of pain in the fog. They all ran towards the sound and found the bodies of 2 of their missing team members. "Scared coward," one of them shouted into the fog. "Show your face." All the men heard a light giggle. They all turned to see what looked like an image of a girl with her hair tied in 2 buns. Mystical lightning she suddenly said, and streams of purple lightning fell from the sky and incinerated the men before they could even scream, and then another one appeared as if he heard the cries of pain of the ninja he took with him, and he knew that rushing headlong into this fog was a very bad idea. Hello, Kabuto, said a vaguely familiar voice. Kabuto turned around and saw Naruto standing right in front of him. So there you are, said Kabuto, trying not to show his fear. He saw Naruto's power with his own eyes and knew that if he couldn't deliver a sudden blow. I know what you're thinking, smirking, said Naruto, and a sudden attack won't work on me. You know that even with your power, said Ka, as if after the shock passed from Naruto finding out what he was thinking. You can't fight an entire village alone. Kabuto, said Naruto, sadly shaking his head. Who said I was alone? As if raised an eyebrow until he heard a scream explosion. In trembling he turned around just in time for a vertical energy wave rising from the ground to cut him right. The explosion dissipated in half shortly after it hit him. At that moment the fog cleared to reveal Naruto's gang, Zabuza, Haku and the former 5-sound ninja. The only ones not there were Sally, Alexandra, Sarah, Carrie and Baggett. Some of them had changed their wardrobe a little. Zabuza was wearing a short sleeve shirt and loose pants. Kargajiro had lost his necklace and was wearing a black shirt and long pants. Now he had a rhinoceros tattoo on his left shoulder. Kitamaru, Utayuya, Kimimaru, Sukun and Ukun were dressed identically. Haku was wearing a shabby shirt and long pants. She was not wearing a mask and she was wearing a ninja headband. Now all the ninja had an headband with the dragon symbol. Sally, Sarah, Carrie and Alexandra wanted to stay home because they were not quite ready to see a lot of bloodshed. Carrie just wanted to stay because she didn't want to leave her little Inari. Naruto chuckled slightly, remembering how Inari blushed when Carrie said that Baggett didn't show up because he found out about 4 mages in another world who could help them. It was boring, Zabuza said, shaking himself in the grass. I was hoping it would be a little more fun with these guys. You can't always get what you want, Zabuza said. Haku. Besides, we can find more challenging fighters while we're inside. With that, the team headed to Oromo's domain. Inside, they discovered a labyrinth of tunnels and rooms to make sure that the newly formed 5-Dragon Ninja, formerly known as the 5-Dragon Ninja, could still get a surprise from the snake. They separated from the group. Naruto's group saw all sorts of laboratories that had giant test tubes with dead bodies. They all guessed that all the poor guys were victims of Orochimaru's experiments. Naruto shook his head with a disgusted expression on his face. He was going to take his time taking this snake apart. As they walked through the laboratory, they found the Sannin snake waiting for them. So you're the one who destroyed my people, he said. Orochimaru, I must say I'm surprised I haven't seen you in quite a while. Naruto, what did Naruto ask? Naruto was hoping that I would join you like that arrogant Sasuke wanted, since you have a thing about power, said Orochima, standing up. Yes, I do want power, said Naruto, pulling out his sword, but I want to use it to protect those dear to me and not to kill people. Cuckoo, laughed Amaru. Such a stupid boy. Amaru snapped his fingers as soon as the sound echoed around the room through the shushin a ton of sound. Ninja. Naruto grinned and nodded. At that moment all of his allies jumped out and started fighting with the ninja of sound. Naruto glared at the snake. Sannin Arokai Maru opened his mouth and out jumped a snake carrying with it Sanguine. Maru caught it with his hand and the snake was pulled back into his mouth with a sword in his hand. Maru jumped at the swinging Naruto. Naruto took his own the sword, which he christened the Silver Dragon, and parried the blow of the snake. Arukai Maru growled and tried again. He met the Same defense, but this time Naruto hit Sani with his knee in the stomach and connected his fist with Amaru's face. The force of the blow sent him through the wall. Since Naruto knew all the jutsu, he knew how to use Tsunade's superpower. Urukai Maru managed to get up, but he was experiencing incredible pain from the blow which he experienced. Not bad for a small child. Groaned to himself Amaru, getting up. Don't think that you can still rest, he heard to Naruto. Arokai Maru jumped to the side just in time for a huge fireball to crash into the ground where he stood just a few seconds ago. Then Naruto jumped out of the flames and with a deafening crack brought his knee to Orochimaru's face. The snake groaned, trying to get up, but received a kick in the side from which he rolled on the floor, and Orochimaru learned that he was running out of ideas and that Naruto was incredibly strong. For the first time in his life, Urukai Maru felt fear. Urukai Maru suddenly bit his thumb and ran it down his hand. Summoning jutsu, he shouted. He stood up. A huge column of smoke, when it dissipated, became visible a massive purple cobra with black stripes and green eyes. What is going on? Orochimaru growled. Manda, you summoned me only to kill this little brat. The boy is stronger than you think, Manda. Uru said to Charu he thought that if he summoned Manda, the snake boss would be able to weaken Naruto to such an extent that Amaru could absorb his body. The snake Sannin may have been afraid of him, but he knew that if he could absorb Naruto's body he would truly become a god. Okay, growled Manda, but when this is over I expect 100 sacrifices. With these words Manda roared and rushed at Naruto, who jumped into the air and brought the noose down on Manda's head. As a result, Manda's head crashed into the concrete below. Then Naruto jumped back and screamed. Heavenly chains. Suddenly white glowing chains burst from the walls. The chains wrapped around Manda and held him in place. When they turned around him, Manda hissed in pain. What's going on? He managed to squeeze out. I don't know about any such jutsu, let me explain, said Naruto walking up to the snake boss. This is not a jutsu, it's a spell. While I was training I learned many of them. As the name suggests, these chains were forged in heaven. The hot metal burns only the flesh of the wicked. Naruto drew his sword to finish off the cobra when Manda, wait, let me join you, said Manda, trying to save his skin. I can make you more powerful. Naruto shook his head. No sorry big guy, said Naruto, I already have enough power and I don't make deals with villains like you. With these words Naruto jumped up and plunged his sword into Manda's brain. The snake shook for a moment and then collapsed in a heap. Then Naruto turned to Zeno-san. Why don't you just kill me? Asked Urukaimaru, a little interested in why this incredibly strong boy didn't just kill him from the start, because Naruto chuckled. I'm not the only one who has a grudge against you. Hello boss, said a deep familiar voice. No, that can't be them. Dead, thought Orochimaru, turning around and seeing his former sprue standing behind him. What happened? Asked Jirobo, crossing his arms over his chest. Aren't you happy to see us? Asked Kidomaru, cracking all his knuckles. You don't look happy to see us. Well, we didn't miss you, said Yuya, taking out her flute. We just came to thank you for what you put us through while we were working for you, and we have a lot to pay back, said Ukin, and his brother Sukin literally stood right behind him, grinning like crazy. Kimi was silent, but from the look of absolute malice in his eyes one could tell he was going to harm the snake. Since the snake Sannin was currently suffering from pain, he could barely move and was helpless. He grinned evilly, remembering something. You made a big mistake betraying me, said Orochima when he managed to make a hand gesture. To his surprise, nothing happened. What happened? The seals aren't activating, he said, stating the obvious when the group didn't fall over in pain as he expected. Everything was simple, Naruto said, forcing the snake to him. When I returned them I removed those seals. You no longer have any power over them. Amaru turned pale, if he wasn't already white as a sheet. The next few minutes revolved around Amaru getting his ass kicked and his brother continued to inflict numerous blows on him with their limbs. Jiro repeatedly crushes with force. Kidomaru used his strengthening web to form spikes and wanza them into the snake's back. She hit him with the 3 oni she summoned and forced them to drive him into the floor. Kimimaru hit him with a bone drill which ripped out the snake's stomach. While they ended the brutal beating that Orochima had endured, he suddenly left his body crawling out of his mouth. He probably would have tried to kill the former sound ninja if Naruto hadn't stood in his way. Execution at the stake. Naruto screamed, slamming his palm into the snake's chest. Urucharu was thrown back and then he exploded in black and gold. PLA Sannin's screams were heard throughout the land of rice fields, and Zack Nakalota I wanted to beat him up a little more. The tone she used made her look like a little girl. If anyone heard it and didn't know her, they would probably think she was a little girl or much cuter than she actually was when she was sorry, said Naruto, rubbing the back of his head. But I didn't want that overgrown snake to hurt my new friend's point there, said Kidomaru. Naruto, he walked up to the body and threw it over his shoulder. Call the others. Naruto shouted, we have work to do later in Konoha. Everything was almost the same. Sasuke still thought he was the king of the world and Sakura was still blind to everything but him. Although Sasuke got angry when he found out that the girls he wanted left the city, he tried to persuade Tsunade to classify them as missing, but unfortunately at that time she was talking to Sumi and Zuko. He was hospitalized with a broken leg and 2 ribs. Kiba was a little upset when he found out that his sister was gone, but in reality he was kind of glad. He knew what the Uchiha clans did to the women there and he was glad that his sister was gone. Tsunade was currently doing paperwork. The curse of all Kage. When the Anbu burst through the door, Lady Haka, he shouted, there is something you should see in the square. Tsunade followed the Anbu into the square and she had to look twice at what she saw. In the middle of the square stood a group of priests. They were dressed in white robes with hoods closed. You couldn't even see their eyes. Each of them had a golden image of a dragon on the front of their hoods. There were at least 7 of them standing around 2 coffins. It seemed they were praying for the souls of the people inside. What was in the coffins? Asked Suna, approaching the priest in front. He didn't answer, he just continued praying. I'm talking to you, Tsunade shouted, a little annoyed that she was currently being ignored. If you want to see what's in the coffins, said the priest in a quiet, whisper-like voice, all you have to do is watch. While the priest continued to pray, he and his assistant stepped aside so Tsunade could get to the coffins. She walked up to them and opened them both. She recoiled in surprise. Inside the 2 coffins were the bodies of Orochimaru and Kabuta. In the case of Kabuta, what was left of him after Ino finished him off. As soon as the coffins were opened, the priest stopped their chanting. We would like to speak with your council, the head priest said when Tsunade managed to return from where she went when she saw the 2 bodies. About an hour passed before the council was convened. When they learned that Orochimaru had been killed, many reactions followed. The civilian side was a little upset that another place had such power, and the shinobi country was glad that the traitor was dead. So why did you want to meet with the council? Shibi Aburame asked when the head priest stood before them. I want to convey a message from our leader, the priest said slowly. And who, is this your leader? Hamura asked, clearly curious. Who is this leader? The Dragon King answered, the priest, the Dragon Prince's father. The councils were shocked. No one had mentioned the Dragon Prince since the Anbu returned and told them about him. If this guy was his father, he must have been incredibly strong. What is this message? Koharu asked. He says that you will soon see the power of his village. The priest said. You will see him and his son during the Chunin exams. A few months later, the civilian council looked a little worried, but they thought that with the Uchiha on their side, they could defeat them as well. The priest said, we would like to collect the bounty on Orochimaru and his right hand, Kabuto. The civilian council member yelled, you can't get that money. You can collect the bounty on Orochimaru and only on Orochimaru, then we will take our business elsewhere. The priest said, I'm sure many other villages will pay dearly for the body of these two. Of course, if they find out that this village couldn't pay, he left the offer hanging in the air for a minute, allowing the council and Hag to think about it for a moment. Okay. Tsunade said, we will pay you the full amount for both of them. You must be crazy. Danza shouted, you can't pay them for something that will cause incredible damage to the village. Do you see a better solution? Tsunade asked him. Having received his money, the priest left, joined the others and headed for the exit of the village. Meanwhile, Danza was giving signals to some mounted Anbu he had an alliance with. Snake-san and they both planned to take over Konoha, with Danza gaining control and Snake-san gaining the forbidden seal of the scrolls along with the priests. They were leaving the village when they were stopped by the Root Anbu team. You shouted, Captain, you will return the money you stole in this village and then tell us about this Dragon King. We will not tell you anything, said the priest, and if you attack us, our leader will perceive this as an act of war. If I know war correctly, it's not something this village can afford right now. The captain growled and yelled, kill them and take everything useful from their corpses. Almost as soon as the NSA were a few feet from the priests, a large wall of ice erupted from the ground. The entire team jumped back in shock. They didn't know of anyone in the village with such power. What do you think you're doing? Asked someone's voice. They followed him to the top of the ice and saw a boy standing there. T18. He was tall with black hair and brown eyes. If it weren't for the fact that he was taller, they would have mistaken him for Sasuke. Who are you? Asked the captain, wanting to know the name of the person who dared to stop them. My name is Gray. The man answered. Now I repeat, what do you think you're doing? We're taking back what was stolen from us, answered Captain Gray. Narrowed his eyes, and then an ice spike flew out of the ground and pierced the man's chest. Then pieces of the wall he used to protect the priests broke off and crushed the Anbu. Listen to my voice, Gray roared. This is what the Dragon Village is capable of. If you will cross one of us, you will cross all of us. With these words, ice rose around Gray and the priests and split when it dissipated. They were no longer there. A few seconds later, the priests and Gray reappeared in the dense forest. A snow-black she-bulba was waiting for them. A small blue cat lay at the blonde's feet. How did it go? Asked the pink-haired boy. Everything went well, Natsu, answered Gray. Nice to know, said someone's voice. All four turned around and saw Bogoto in human form leaning against a tree. Know that the hidden leaf knows about us, said Baggett. It's time to prepare well, said the raven-haired girl when they were all ready to set off. Part of the plans and the return. You tried to do what? Tsunade screamed, asking for advice because she was informed of what happened with the Anbu and the dragon priests. We tried to return what they stole from us, tried to reason with the angry woman Rose Haruna there. Tsunade growled. They earned this money for killing that damn snake. I don't care what you think, you had no right. Tsunade began Danza but was interrupted by an angry woman. For you, this is Lady Hage, she prophesied, and I think I need to remind you who's in charge here. She pulled her hand back and punched the wall hard, creating a web of cracks in it. That's why I'm here, Hage, I'm in charge here, not you. With these words she went to her office to drink more juice. Meanwhile, in another part of the Land of Fire, Naruto stood with his brides, Baggett, and some new allies he found in another world. The first was a pink-haired man named Natsu. He had tanned skin and wore mostly white. He was a fire mage, which meant he could make flames burst out of any part of his body, his arms, mouth, legs, you name it. The second was Gray, the man who protected the priests. He reminded Naruto of Sasuke. But fortunately, because of the incident with his sins, Gray wasn't arrogant, and as a spoiled child his power was the ability to manipulate ice. It was similar to the ability of Haku, but he had it to a much greater degree. The third was a girl named Lucy. She was tall and a very cute blonde. She and Natsu were obviously in love with each other, but they could never admit it to each other. She could perform summoning with keys. Silver keys summoned constellations, while her golden keys summoned creatures of the zodiac. The third was a tall, slender, dark-haired woman named Urza. Basically, she had the ability to equip the BC whatever she needed, and she could change weapons. She secretly had a crush on Gray and Gray had a crush on her, but they were both quiet and very cooperative, so they never had time to tell each other about it. Naruto made a mental note to lock each pair in a closet to see how it went. Baggett brought them so he could help them when they planned to return to the Hidden Leaf. They planned to invade during the exams Chunin since it worked well with the recently deceased, so we all know the plan. Naruto asked after he discussed the plan with them. Said plan was to weaken their forces during the exam so they could strike during the final part of the exam. They all nodded in agreement. Naruto smiled slightly as they all left, closing the meeting. A few months later, the fall of Konoha was supposed to begin. A few months later, several villages arrived for the Chunin exams and some leaf villagers were nervous. They heard from an anonymous source that the Dragon Prince himself and his father recruited several warriors from their house. Some were nervous but others were stupid and thought that they would be beaten because Sasuke was on their side. Everything was fine in the village. Sasuke was ordering something from Hawk. Sakura was next to him. Ali and Guy were ranting. An red-haired girl with blue hair, stern-looking girl, pink-haired girl and pink-haired guy, and also a guy who looked as stern as the girl. One of the guards recognized him as the ice guy from a month ago. How are you? Asked Natsu. Passing by them, they saw that they had a dragon drawn on their headbands in kanza and they knew where they came from. Oh god, they both thought at the same time. Dragon ninja? Asked Tsunade when the Anbu told her what they saw. Yes. They said the Anbu had a dragon symbol on their headbands. It seems the dragon village approached the Chunin exams. A team of Dagon walked through the village feeling strange looks on themselves. They walked through the village until they reached the Haku Tower. All 8 of them entered to Tsunade's surprise. What do I owe such pleasure to? Tsunade asked. She knew where they were from and she knew that if she did something wrong she would end up on Naruto's bad side. Along with this so-called Dragon King, we brought a message from the Dragon King and the Prince. Said Urza. Our village will participate in the Chunin exams tomorrow. Said Natsu. Our king and prince will join you as spectators, Gray said with a soft look. However, we warn you, Lucy said. If your council tries to do anything to us or anyone else, they will both tear this village apart with their bare hands. Tsunade nodded. She knew that Naruto was the Dragon Prince after the incident with the Anbu. However, she had Inoichi use her mental abilities to erase the civilian council's memories of the incident and replace them with a memory that made them think the Anbu had returned. She told them that they encountered a hooded man who called himself the Dragon Prince. Only the head shinobi herself and Jair knew and they passed the message on to their children. Okay, Tsunade said. When will they arrive? They should arrive tomorrow. Sally said, saying this. They were the Dong fighters who left. They didn't know about the pair of eyes watching them. Author's note, I have something to say. Naruto's new village is called the Village of Hidden Magicians. They call it the Village of Hidden Dragons to make it look more like the ninja teams were walking through the streets until they were stopped by some native Anbu. What do you want? Alexandra asked, starting to lose patience. She had a feeling that these guys would try to do something like this. Mr. Danza wishes to see you, the leader said. We're not going anywhere, Carrie said, crossing her arms over her chest. It seems you don't understand, the leader said, reaching for the sword behind his back. When Dan requests an audience, you grant him an audience. Root rushed forward with the intention of capturing their keyword. Intent. What they didn't count on was a blonde with a well-red hair and a girl with blue hair using a fighting style they had never seen before. Those who weren't hurt by the girl's onslaught were frozen by a dark-haired guy or a pink-haired girl. The dark-haired girl pulled a mace out of nowhere and smashed the ice that Root was in. The people inside also shattered into pieces. The boor grumbled. Urza. Idiots who think they can make demands. Onus demands. With these words the teams headed to the hotel where the next day they were called by the council. They reluctantly got up and went to the meeting. I wonder what these guys want from us, asked Natsu when he and his friends were led to the council hall. Do they really think they can control us, asked Lucy raising an eyebrow. If they do this then they are complete idiots, said Gray. The council benefits this village. Cut off the Anbu who VL them and then muttered under his breath, but there are times when I wonder what the civilian half is smoking. And the NBO stepped aside and let them in. Kakashi had been among the ninja clans since he was appointed head of the Uchiha clan until Sasuke turned 16. Fortunately this was after the incident with the Anbu, so he didn't know that Naruto was the Dragon Prince. He glared at the foreign ninja. What do you want? Urza growled. Will you show respect to this girl from the council? Cut off Kaharu. You will earn our respect when you deserve it, Carrie screamed at the clan heads. The ninja had to hold back a few chuckles. Even Kakashi had to chuckle, had to admit that it was very funny to see Kaharu seething with anger. We brought you here so you could shed some light on your village, Hamura said in secret. The civilian council wanted to know more about this village so they could find it and take it as their own. We won't tell you anything, Alexandra said irritably. If you don't do this you aki deet with Ibiki, threatened Rose. Haruna, who was expecting a reaction from them. Didn't it seem like we were afraid of death, asked Gray. Then okay, said Danza. He had already lost his patience. He was very upset that they destroyed part of his root. He loudly snapped his fingers and many root Anbu appeared. Grab them, ordered Danza. I think not. Suddenly there was a flash of golden light and new figures entered the room. The first was a tall man with long black hair and in white armor that covered him from shoulders to toes. The second was smaller in height. He had a white cloak with golden tongues of flame. His shirt was black, baggy jeans and black sandals. He also had a sword hanging on his back. They couldn't see his face because he had the hood of his coat raised and he had a mask similar to an Anbu with a golden swirl on it. Bahamut and Naru coughed. With them were 5 figures in cloaks. I dare you to guess who you are, Haruna screamed. I said the larger one. The Dragon King. I suppose you know about my son. He smirked and put his hand on his child's head. As soon as they heard these words, they rushed at the prince, trying to capture or kill him. They would for the benefit of this village cut off the Anbu who VL them and then mutter they were interrupted when 7 more joined them. One of them had a large Zanbato and brought it down on the head of the nearest Anbu. Dragon Fangs, the Dragon King explained. My son's personal techniques, father. You know I don't need them, said the Dragon Prince. His voice was easy to make out through the mask. Yes, but why risk it? So, said Bagot, turning to the council. What were you going to do with my fighters? You ham. They killed the Leaf Ninja. Kakashi said. As retribution, they will either provide information or scrolls about their abilities. In fact, the Dragon Prince spoke. They were attacked first and they were only defending themselves. If that was the reason you called us, then thank you for wasting our time. With those words, they turned to leave. Stop, yelled the fat council member. This council dem. The man didn't have time to finish speaking when the Dragon Prince suddenly appeared in front of him and lifted him off the ground. A large amount of murderous intent emanated from him. We are not from this village, he declared, tightening his grip. You have no power over us and no right. Demand something in the air and hit his head on the table in front of him, breaking the entire council stared at the display of incredible power. And also, the old man, the Dragon Prince shouted as he left. I must tell you that the Whirlpool village is alive and that they are coming here. The civilians turned pale again. They had a premonition that the Whirlpool village would not be too friendly with them. As they left, all the dragon warriors were grinning. Sumi, Heshi, and Din were thinking the same thing. Dude, he's good. After the people from the dragon village entered their rooms, the Dragon Prince took off his mask. Naruto yelled. How do Anbu breathe in these things? Did you want to be where Naruto is? One of the hooded figures said, removing her hood to reveal Hinata. The others removed their hoods to reveal Han, Ino, Tenten, and Timur. How did you deal with them? Timur asked. She was told that the civilian half was arrogant, but she never imagined that everything would be so bad. I just ignored them and took what they handed her. Naruto answered. Shrugging, he hugged her and kissed her. Besides, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have taken you girls as my future brides. You've already forgotten us. Naruto-kun. They turned around and saw that Kami Shinigami and Tozi were in the room when they got here. This thought had crossed almost everyone's minds. Shinigami came up, grabbed Naruto by the collar of his shirt, and pulled him towards him for a scorching kiss. Naruto groaned and kissed him back. Hey, save some for the rest of us, sis. Tozi giggled. Shinigami reluctantly pulled away from Naruto. Then Naruto kissed Kami and Tozi as a greeting. What brought you three here? Naruto asked. It's not that he wasn't glad to see them, but he was curious. Why are they here? We wanted to see. What will happen to this village spot up close? Kami personally said, well, you're welcome. You can stay. Naruto said, but don't get any ideas. I'm coming. This is for our wedding night. Shinigami whined slightly, but she understood. In any case, how did you three end up falling in love with Naruto? Asked Ino. Naruto told them that he had his first real kiss with 3 goddesses. She was curious what made them fall in love with him. For me it was how he fought death, said Shinigami. He accepted what they offered with strength and pride. I find this kind of strength in a man very admirable. His heart was what infuriated him, explained Kame. Until now he had no ill will towards them. Can love my reason is how he treated the earth, said Tozi. He showed respect for all living beings, the earth animals, all of them. I was struck when I saw this. All the girls smiled upon hearing this. Their reasons for loving him were similar to those they had. And now, said Naruto, reaching for his mask, I need to settle a small matter. What? Asked Hana. You will see, answered Naruto. Meanwhile, Natsu was walking down the hallway when a water balloon hit him. He looked back and heard laughter. Angry, he rushed towards the sound. He followed the noise until he bumped into Lucy. What's going on? Natsu asked, helping Lucy up before Lucy could answer. The door suddenly swung open and they were pushed in. As soon as they were inside, the door slammed shut and was locked on the other side of the hotel. Gray was running around looking for whoever put the rubber snake in his bed. He bumped into Urza, who looked pretty pissed off. She also had some cream on her face. A rubber snake in my bed, he said, foam in her hand and the feather duster trick. She snorted. She was talking about that trick where you put shaving cream in someone's hand when they're sleeping and something just hits their face and they smear it with cream. Suddenly the door swung open and they were thrown in. Then the door closed and locked itself. Meanwhile, Naruto stood watching everything that was happening through binoculars. He created several clones and used the transparency jutsu to make them invisible. Now that his job was done, he left later. One of the doors opened and Lucy and Natsu came out. They were slightly sweating and both were flushed. So this means that we asked Lucy. I think it's so, girlfriend, said Natsu, kissing her. Meanwhile, Gray and Urza came out of the closet they were in. The only difference was that Urza had a hickey and Gray was putting his shirt back on. I guess we'll have to do this again. Asked Urza with a rare smirk. Definitely, answered Gray, hugging her around the waist. Part 10 Preliminary rounds begin. The first match was Sasuke against some rain ninja. Naruto Dragon Prince knew that the rounds were rigged so the weak would lose and the strong would win. He knew that the council member did this so that their precious Uchiha would advance to the final round. Sasuke won when he used Lion's Flurry like last time. Obviously he wanted to save his strength for the next round. After the medic team took the rain ninja off the field and Sasuke returned to the railing. The next match was announced: Water Snake Hinata vs Kurumu Muya. Yes, I took them from another anime but I'm not good at Japanese names. Don't judge me. Hinata smirked from under her hood after hearing the code name given to her. Naruto gave a list of code names they would be called by while working here undercover. They were also told to only use the abilities they had received during their training so the council wouldn't try to do anything stupid, even though everyone knew the council would eventually do something stupid. One of Naruto's hooded brides jumped off the railing and landed softly. Her opponent was a tall, attractive woman from grass. As soon as the match started, she started chatting nonstop. Do you think you're good enough for him, little girl? Kurumu taunted, trying to get under her skin. I don't know what made you think a man with his strength is good enough for a little fool like you. I'm going to prove it as soon as I hit you on the floor. This stallion is completely mine. The woman expected a result and she got it, although it wasn't the one she expected. Kurumu grabbed a kunai, but at that moment, water suddenly gushed out of nowhere and hit her in the face. She was shocked and looking, saw water rings surrounding the two fighting. What is this? Sakura asked out loud. She heard a laugh and turning around saw Gray's dare. Each of these brides had been trained in their elemental affinity, said Gray, remembering how the Dragon Prince told them to speak when his brides used their powers. They taught it to such an extent that they have incredible control over it. As you can see, Sakura looked at Gray and then at the hooded woman below. If they all had such training, then it would be difficult to defeat them. Many other people had the same thoughts. Sasuke, however, there were others. If they have such power, then I can use them. He thought. He knew that if he crossed with them he could bring out strong offspring of the Uchiha and return his clan to the top where it belonged. Returning to the arena, Kurumu hit with water balls. Then the ring suddenly contracted and wrapped around her. The woman raised her hand and waving it to the left sent the girl flying into the wall. When smoke it dissipated, it was clear that she was lying unconscious in the wall. It took several minutes, but the new brigade laid her down and took her away to treat her broken bones. The next match was announced: Lucy against Shogi. Armin Su compiled. Sorry if this stinks. The blonde stood on the ground and came face to face with her opponent. He was a tall, well-built man with a large war hammer. You might as well throw the girl, he said, smirking. A small girl like you can't hope to defeat such a big, strong man. We'll see. That's all Lucy said in response. Shogi rushed at her with his hammer, ready to strike, but Lucy was incredibly fast. She dodged with incredible speed, and the man eventually exhausted Lucy, took advantage of this and took out the golden key. She held it out and said, "Come out, rhinoceros spirit." Suddenly a blue whirlwind opened in front of her and a large black rhinoceros with a red horn flew out from there and crashed into Seg point blank. As a result, he was sent flying through 3 walls and several trees. After that, a duel took place between Urza and Sakura. The pink-haired girl immediately began to squeal. Do you really think you can defeat our village? Sakura asked the red-haired girl. Your village is made up of weaklings. So, yes, I really think we can defeat you, Urza answered calmly. Well, Sakura said, smirking. Even if you manage to defeat me, you will eventually have to fight Sasuke in the last round. He is better than anyone here, including your prince and that loser Gota who imitates you on your team. The last part she meant was Gray's big mistake. Urza's face instantly distorted. The next thing Sakura realized was that she was in pain and saw stars. Urza took the insult addressed to her man personally and hit the pink-haired girl hard in the face, sending her to the other side of the arena. My little Rose Haruna. Urza screamed when her daughter fell to the ground. She didn't finish. She walked up and, concentrating, formed an iron staff with a large ball on the end. She knows how to make weapons. Sai asked Gray when he saw this. Yes, he replied. We all have different abilities that we have learned. Summoning is the area of AAA competence of Lucy. Urza weapons and armor. Returning to the arena, Urza lowered the staff onto Sakura's back. Don't you dare never bam talk about my boyfriend bam like that bam. Urza managed to throw out all of this at the same time, dealing an incredibly painful blow to Sakura's spine. After she threw out her anger, Urza moved away from the now unconscious Sakura, who was currently in the center of a huge crater. Medics immediately took her away and Rose ran after them. Don't you think you overdid it a little? Asked Gray. No, Urza answered, but I know that you like it when I get all the solid honey. With these words, Urza waved her hands Natsu's neck. Gracegro. How they met. Natsu was challenged to a match against some grass ninja. The match went pretty quickly. The guy said that when he beat him he was going to take Lucy and show her what a real man is and that He could wait to let her down. As a result, Natsu punched the guy in the stomach, throwing him back a little, and then directed a huge stream of flame at him. The man was hospitalized for several weeks with a broken rib and third-degree burns. When he walked up to the railing and received a thank you kiss from Lucy, "It looks like we all slept together," Natsu said, smirking. "It seems so," said Gray. The next match was scheduled: Earth Dragon Ino vs Kizumi Mirani. Ino jumped down and took out her axe. Many people gasped at the size of her weapon. Ichi stared at him because he had no idea that his daughter's physical strength had increased to such a level that she could lift something like that as if it was just a useless paperweight. Needless to say, the match was not that exciting. The opponent was a man, so he said that if he won, he would make her his woman. In the end, after that, he developed a lot of killing intent. He rushed at her to hit her and finish the fight. Unfortunately, he was too overconfident. Ino simply put out her axe and it crashed right into the blade from the side. This action caused a sympathetic "oh" from everyone watching. Then Ino picked it up from the ground and then, using her axe like a baseball bat, sent it flying towards the arena. After she was declared the winner, she returned to her seat. The next match was between Gray and Sai. "Good luck in the match," Sai said. He knew that his usual tactic of marking men by insulting their manhood would not work here. This guy was calm and collected, so he decided that this tactic would not work with this guy. As soon as the match started, Sai took out his sketchbook, formed a bunch of ink birds and launched them at Gray. Gray's response was to freeze them. Then he formed an ice wall in front of him and they crashed into it. Like glass thrown at a brick wall, Gray formed a mace out of ice, jumped over the wall he created, and brought it down on Sai's head. Unfortunately, after the mace connected with Sai's body, it turned into ink. Sai reappeared behind him and formed several ink tigers. Gray froze them too, but picked one up and threw it at Sai, causing him to jump into the air. Gray then formed a bazooka out of ice and fired an ice missile. The projectile hit its target, sending Sai flying toward the opposite wall. The rest of the fights were fairly straightforward. Mystic Thunder, or Tenten, fought some rain ninja and won with just a few lightning balls. She was given this name because of her main move with the sword. Timur, or Mystic Wind. She fought some grass ninja and knocked him down with a well-aimed cyclone, which sent him to the hospital with broken ribs that passed dangerously close to his lungs. Later, after the final match, the final rounds were announced. In the rounds, basically everything, the mages and brides were facing off against each other, which was infuriating a lot of people. They knew it wasn't a coincidence, but they kept their mouths shut. Sasuke had to fight the winners of the match, and they knew that then they could be strong after all these fights. But even they weren't above resting when they left for the match. Sasuke stopped the mages. "What do you want?" Natsu asked. He wasn't in the mood right now. He just wanted to go back to the hotel and suck his girlfriend off in secret. Gray wanted to do the same with his girlfriend. "I want to know how you got this power." Sasuke said. "We're not telling you," Ino said. Fortunately, Sasuke didn't recognize her voice. However, he noticed that her voice was slightly distorted by Sasuke. They did just that, but Sasuke couldn't see their faces. They all had masks on. They all had Anbu masks, only with something on the back to cover their hair. Ino had a pattern that looked like cracks that can be found in dried earth. Hinata had a pattern on him that looked like Tenten's waves had a lightning bolt design on it. Tiri had a design after Twister. They put on masks after meeting their parents so that if Sasuke's hoods or something during their fights, they wouldn't get caught. "Well then," said Sasuke, crossing his arms over his chest. "I expect to see you girls at my house tonight." "Say what?" Timur asked, a tick appearing above her eyebrow. "I said that you're coming to me tonight so that you can carry the next generation." Uchiha said to Sasuke with a grin. "How should I say this?" Urza asked out loud, tapping her chin. "A yes, not. In your life, friends." Then Urza walked past him, but Sasuke grabbed her wrist. "It wasn't a request," said Sasuke. "It was an order." He raised his hand to hit her, but Gray anticipated it and punched him in the face. Fortunately, people were still looking at Sakura after the beating that Urza had given her. So they didn't have to worry about her leaving and starting to scream about how they should to be gentlemen because the great Sasuke wanted them to bear his offspring. It's good that she left because then they would have to listen to her whiskey about how she would kill Gray for hurting him. Sasuke stood up with a frown on his face when a calm voice caught his attention. "There's a problem?" asked it. They all turned to see Bogota and Naruto behind him. Sasuke couldn't see it, but Naruto had an angry expression on his face because Sasuke thought he could command his warriors and brides. "There are," said Sasuke, "these girls refusing in the World Cup." "The problem?" asked Naruto, a little annoying at the moment. Sasuke earlier put him in a bad mood and he only aggravated Uchiha. Said Sasuke, stating it as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "They should beg me to take them away and give them my children. They won't do it because they don't love you," said Naruto, smirking under his mask. "Lucy and you found love with Natsu and Gray and mine brides resort themselves for our honeymoon in a few years. It won't matter." Sasuke said smiling. I'll go to the council and they'll give them to make me happy. And what makes you think that will work? Asked Baguette. Because they control every ninja in their judicial system, answered Kakashi for Sasuke. In fact, Kakashi himself was starting to get annoyed with the Prince King and the people from his village. Yes, said Baguette, ninja under their jurisdiction. They are not from this village, so even your much respected council can't force them to do anything to you. Sasuke had a smirk on his face until he heard that little part. He clenched his fist as his trump card. To keep these women under his thumb and make the heir to the power of his clan. Now I suggest you leave before my boy here gets very angry, said Baguette, since he knew Naruto was very fed up with the Uchiha right now. Sasuke growled, turned around and left with Kakashi in tow. They started walking until Sasuke felt like something warm touched the back of his head. He turned to look at the group. Behind him, Yu just started to speak but was struck in the face by a small golden flash thrown by the Dragon Prince, who had a wide smile under his mask. Kakashi glared at the young man. You just hit a noble member of Konoha, he growled. Apologize. I don't have to apologize to an Uchiha, said Naruto calmly. He tried to take my future wives from me. For this I returned him to earth. He smirked again, seeing the anger in Kakashi's eyes and the indignation on Sasuke's face. He knew that Sasuke would eventually do something stupid if he swallowed no bait, but for all he knew, Sasuke could become me and figure out his little plan. Swallowed. Naruto took the bait. Then I will make you apologize, Sasuke said, rushing at Naruto. Naruto simply caught his wrist, tore him off the ground and threw him back on the ground, or at least on the part of the railing he was standing on. Ha, laughed Naruto. If this is the elite, I would not like to see the failure of this village. Kakashi decided to intervene and try to save his student. He rushed forward and probably would have started attacking with Chidori if Baguette hadn't gotten in his way and grabbed his wrist with one hand and slammed his head into the wall with the other. Naruto picked Sasuke up from the ground again, but this time he just pushed him and he landed on his back right where he started. Sasuke stood up and growled slightly. How dare he do this to me? He thought I'm an Uchiha elite. He shouldn't have touched me, let alone hurt me. Kakashi stood up after being slammed headfirst into the stone wall, stood up and prepared to fight just like Sasuke. Stop it, Tsunade screamed. She stumbled upon the scene. At first she didn't stop it. It was because she wanted Sasuke to be knocked down a couple of pegs. She decided to end it now because the last thing she wanted to deal with was war. Danzo was with her and he had the same thoughts, only instead of wanting to stop the war he wanted to keep Sasuke alive so he could use him. He attacked the heir of the Uchiha, Danzo said, pointing at Naruto. He should be punished. He will not suffer any punishment, Tsunade growled. He was attacked and he was simply defending himself. He hurt the great Uchiha. Danzo screamed. He should be executed where he is. Not speaking, Naruto roared. Anyone who had seen this man before knew that usually he was very quiet, calm and collected. His outburst of anger seemed so uncharacteristic. If the Uchiha wants to start a war, then so be it, he prophesied. But I will not be punished because of one person's stupidity. You're lucky I'm in a good mood. Otherwise, the Uchiha's eyes and balls would have disappeared. Danzo turned pale, as did some other people from the village who heard. If he had done that, the most powerful Kyoko and Genka in the village would have been lost and would never have been revived. As if that could ever happen, Sasuke said, standing up. You just got lucky with the blow. Your strength is probably exaggerated. If you ever fought me, you would have died. I'm an Uchiha. All clans bow. I should, just like you, and your women should pounce on me. The heads of the ninja clans fell asleep from the ignorance of the child standing before them. If it weren't for the fact that most of the village spoiled the boy, he probably would have either been less of a pain in the ass or at least been more humble. Sasuke turned to leave when he heard three words that he thought no one would ever say to him. I challenge you. They were words spoken by the Dragon Prince. What? Asked Sasuke. I challenge you, he repeated. Are you deaf? You challenge me? Asked Sasuke. Uchiha. Elite. If you're so strong, then why don't you prove it? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. Unless of course you're not a coward. Sasuke growled. No one had ever laughed at him like that. Then okay. Sasuke growled. I accept your challenge. What are the conditions? A fight to the death, said Naruto. If I win, your precious Sharingan will die with you. If you win, you will prove your strength to the ninja world. How will beating you lead to this? Asked Danzo. Because Naruto said during the exam there will be some other villages here and it is more than likely that they will spread the word of your power among the elemental peoples and your power will be known to everyone. Sasuke smirked at this. After that the name Uchiha would become known to everyone who dared to face him and the Uchiha clan would gain even greater glory than before. I agree with this, said Sasuke, but I want something else when I beat you. And what could it be? Asked Naruto, raising an eyebrow under the mask, although he already thought that he knew what the spoiled boy wanted. I want to learn the secrets of your power and ask your father to teach me, answered Sasuke. I want these girls to become my personal servants. He looked at the girls behind him and the lustful look he gave them made them feel dirty. I accept your terms, said Naruto extending his hand. They shook each other's hands, smirking so confidently that he was sure that he would beat the man in front of him. We are fighting during the last part of the exams, the titles of Chunin. It will be your fight. Naruto said, crossing his arms over his chest. He decided not to wash his hands thoroughly when he returned to the hotel. Sasuke nodded, turning around and leaving with Kakashi after him so that he could train him in the meantime. Dan made plans, trying to think of a way to make him stronger. Naruto smiled under his mask. Everything is according to plan, he thought. Part 11. The final exam. A 1-month pass. The news of the mortal combat between Naruto and the Dragon Prince quickly spread throughout the village. Almost the entire village came to watch the final fight. To be honest, some people came to watch the fights before the start. Because some of them were catfights. Perverts. The entire arena was filled with people waiting. Andy sat with the Koguki from other villages along with the dais of wind, water, and fire. They said they would come, but if Konoha was still the same pack of idiots they were, then they would send their samurai armies and destroy everyone. Naruto and the clan heads were with her, as well. Another woman in the Khan's cloak. The civilians wanted to end it so they could see Sasuke wipe the floor with the Dragon Prince. Sarah, who was currently sitting in a wheelchair due to a severe beating received from Verza, was with her mother who wanted her to see Sasuke win. Damn, these people are stupid. After Tsunade gave a speech about how everything would happen, the first two fighters were called away. Lucy stood in front of Urza while the two girls were preparing to measure their strength. May the best mage win, Lucy said with a smile. I'm going to, said Urza, smirking. As soon as the duel began, Urza formed a mace and rushed at Lucy. Lucy managed to get out of the way of the weapon and threw her leg forward, connecting it with Urza's head. Urza was a little confused and Lucy took out the silver key. It's time to show you my new secret summoning, said Lucy, turning it to the side, and a portal opened. What happened was not what Urza expected. She saw a man with a head, a rhinoceros in a superhero costume with a red letter H on his chest. The enemy called out, "Fear the mighty battle horn." With these words, he rushed to attack, and before Urza could react, about 40 people hit her in the chest with his massive horn, throwing her into the wall. Thank you for your help, Hal, Lucy said. Looking at the creature with his mouth open. Don't tell me about this, Lucy, Hal replied, shaking her hand. With these words, Lucy ended the call, and Hal disappeared. At that moment, Urza, covered in bruises and dust, emerged from the wall and said, "Wow, this battle horn cuts deep." With these words, Urza fell to the ground unconscious. Many people looked at each other, confused as to how such a strange summoning could defeat her, but until she died, it didn't concern them. Urza was removed from the field. When Gray and Natsu were knocked down for the fight, "It will be a good game," said Baggett. "Why is this?" Tsunade asked him. "Natsu is fire, Gray is ice," he explained. "These two are opposites before they become rivals. Expect a lot of action in this fight and you might want to buy some medicine for frostbite and burns." In the meantime, back in the ring, the two looked at each other getting ready to fight. As soon as the match started, the two fighters rushed at each other. Natsu engulfed his hand in flames and tried to strike Gray in the chest, but Gray moved out of the way and hit Natsu with an ice blast. The ice melted after a few seconds due to Natsu's temperature. Then Natsu engulfed his leg in flames and Uda slashed at Gray, who managed to dodge but got some burns on his shirt. He managed to catch Natsu's hand, but Natsu responded with a normal punch to the face which actually hit Gray's target. Natsu skidded and Natsu took advantage of this. He took a deep breath and sent a massive fireball from his mouth towards the ice user. Gray erected an ice wall just in time to block it. Gray then formed ice pistols and started firing. He sent small pieces of ice at Natsu, who managed to dodge them, but one or two hit him in hand. It was then that the two decided it was time to end their duel. Both closed their eyes and concentrated. Suddenly a sudden surge of energy emanated from both of them. Half the arena was shaking from the cold while others were sweating from the heat. Half the ring Gray was in was covered in ice and half of Natsu was on fire. Then they rushed at each other and collided. Rizu was a massive ball in the center of the arena. Half of it was made of frozen energy and the other half of fire. Remember the fight between Race and Blackbeard from One Piece? When the smoke cleared, it was clear that both fighters were lying on the ground unconscious. The only difference was that Gray had several burns and Natsu had a slight frostbite on his hand. When the two were carried away, Lucy and a recently awakened Urza followed them to be with their men. The next fight was supposed to be between Naruto and Ra, but they both refused to fight with their sister Sandra, and Carrie also refused to fight. This angered a few people. "Why don't you accept it and fight, you useless __?" Someone roared. "This is why you'll never be good enough for Sasuke." Sakura was the one who yelled. It was she who heard Sasuke trying to take the girls to him and they refused, saying she was crazy. It would have been with decreasing insults would probably have continued if not for A sudden surge of killing intent. Everyone turned to the source to see the dragon prince covered in golden flames and radiating so much murderous determination that the NSA stood guard and the samurai outside the arena were on standby. The ladies were shaking as were the KG, plus a bunch of civilians threw up everything they ate for lunch, breakfast and last night's dinner. Damn, the janitor would be weighed after Naruto calmed down and some of the vomit was cleaned up. The next match was announced between the water serpent and the earth dragon. Naruto smiled, so he knew that all of them girls were on the same level and that they wouldn't hold back against each other. The two girls turned to face each other and threw off their cloaks. The result was a multitude of wolf whistles, Nusha, all over the arena, and a slap following the men who whistled for their girlfriends or wives to hit them on the head. The earth dragon was wearing a golden battle kimono that was loose but revealed part of her chest, and a slit in the waist revealed the snake was wearing a blue version of which she was wearing only a stomping bikini. The earth dragon slung her axe over her shoulder and the water snake took out her swords and prepared themselves. The two rushed at each other. The water snake immediately went on the offensive and began swinging their swords. The earth dragon managed to block the blow with her axe until she caught one of the swords and threw her other fist forward and connected it with the stomach. The water snake was thrown back a little, but she recovered, but not fast enough. The magnitude of the 7th level of the earth dragon exploded and punched the ground. The result was a powerful earthquake that passed through the earth. A huge crack formed in the ground and the water snake was unable to react fast enough because that the earthquake had thrown her off balance. The earth dragon grinned and turned to leave when she felt a sudden surge of strength. She turned around and saw water filling the chasm she had just created. Suddenly something burst out of the water and landed in front of her. It was a water serpent, only different. Now she was wearing a bulletproof vest. Her chest armor imitated her previous outfit, only where her stomach, neck and shoulders were it was sheathed in metal. She had blue arm guards with green crystals on her wrists and black gloves. Now on her legs she had armor and blue boots with heels. She had green fins on her forearms and on the back of her boots. Her swords had also changed. The blades were now the color of a sea wave and on the bottom of the hilt were the heads of dragons. The earth dragon was thrown back by the sudden transformation. Then she pulled herself together and she herself began to glow gold. Then there was a bright flash. In its place was the golden fox. She was wearing thick armor that perfectly followed her body. She looked almost exactly like the water snake, except that her armor looked more like armor and not a bikini top. She had gold arm guards with a red crystal on her arm and black gloves. She also had boots with heels, except that there were no fins on her body. Her axe was now completely gold with a spike at the bottom of the handle. Everyone stared at the new armored forms of the two female fighters. Sasuke greedily looked at the two girls. The more strength they demonstrated, the more he wanted them. He made a solemn promise that when he defeated the dragon prince he would definitely take these two first. The fighting women collided with each other, moving faster and faster each time their weapons collided the ground beneath them. Sarsala, after a few minutes in chains in each other's throats, they got bored and decided to end it all. They both jumped away. The water snake screamed when behind a pool of water appeared from it. A copy of its mistress made entirely of water rose up with a growl. The crushing dragon, lord of the earth, the dragoness Chala, and from the ground behind her, a glowing version of her master, made entirely of earth, rose up. The toe beast looked at each other and growled. What are these things? Danza asked. The two dragon lords, Baggett said, attracting everyone's attention. These are beasts that command the elements. The water serpent is Alira, the dragon lord of water, and the other is Argas, the dragon lord of earth. There are two more, but you will see them later. Danza watched with curiosity as he watched what was happening. He smiled under the bandages. When Sas uses them to restore his clan, perhaps I can use them to create super soldiers for my root unit, he thought as he began to think about the power he could amass with an army of people like this. Returning to the arena, the two girls pounce on each other with dragons in tow. When they collided, the result was a powerful explosion, which shook half villages. When they looked down at the arena, they saw the girls on the other side of each other with their weapons in a position that meant they were waving them. The Naya snake stumbled a little and the earth dragon grinned, at least until she groaned and fell to the ground. Up in the booth of Kage, Ichi and Heshi smirking internally after an unexpected dream. It was at that moment some of the others decided to leave the medical tent. They had already heard about the battles. They had to get up because of all the explosions. To be honest, some of them just wanted to get up and watch the dragon prince screw Sasuke's ass and send him to the next century. While the arena was being tidied up with your jutsu, it was decided that they would have a break. This gave an opportunity for those who wanted to go to the toilet. To be honest, many people ran to the toilet because they didn't want to miss a single fight. Also at that time, Sakura decided to get closer to Naruto's brides and sisters. What do you want, Pinky? Asked the Earth One Dragoness, her ex-girlfriend. I want to ask you, why are you with that character dragon prince? Said Sakura. Sasuke is so much better than him. Why don't you just leave him and find a real man? These people never learn. Isn't that the question that's been spinning in everyone's mind? Listen, said Mystic Screw with obvious irritation in her voice. You can't say anything that would make us go after that skinny good-for-nothing power-hungry piece of shit that you worship so much. She was already taller than Sakura, but since the said girl was in a wheelchair she practically towered over her, making her look even more menacing than ever. Sakura decided that she didn't want to get hurt even more than she already was, so she decided to retreat. She turned around in her wheelchair and rolled away as fast as her arms could push. After the arena was cleared, everyone ate and went to the banks. The next match was announced. Mystic Wind and Thunder came out arena and dropped their cloaks on. Vint was a loose green combat kimono ending right at her knees on. Grom was wearing a tight sleeveless shirt and loose jeans. She took the broadsword off her back and got into a sword stance. Vint took the combat fan she had and got ready themselves. They both smiled under their masks, seeing that this was the same match they had in the Chunin exams last year. Grom attacked first and tried to chop Vetri's head off her shoulders, but Ver stood in her way and managed to block the ball strike. Then Vin pushed her hand forward and sent a gust of victory wind which threw Grom back. Grom backflipped and landed to the side of the wall and released some lightning with her sword. Lightning struck, she screamed, rushing forward swinging her sword in a downward arc. Vin just jumped to the side and landed a few feet away from her. Strong Wind screamed and released a small tornado which hit Thunder in the chest. Instead of suffering, she saddled the wind, let it spin her. She rose into the air on it and then returned down screaming Thunder drill. In fact, she fell spinning like a drill with the intention of piercing her opponent and would have succeeded if the drilling wind had not interfered again. When she stopped, Thunder threw out her leg and it connected with the stomach of the wind. Screw leaned over Thunder again, put on the sword and began to strike, each of which reached its target. Watching what was happening, the daimyo were impressed. You taught your student well, said the daimyo of the wind. I did not train them, said Bagot. My students did this. Your students? Asked the daimyo of water. Of all the daimyos she was the only woman. Sumi them, she under the code name White Fang. Yes, like in the book. They could not help but think that they had seen her somewhere before. They decided to ask about it later. Yes, said the gods, knowing what to say. Alira, Argas, Jordan, Irish, all were my students in their time. Dragons whom you saw the manifestation of their power, so you trained people who trained them. Asked Danza if he trained them. I don't want to know how strong this character is, thought Danza and a few other people in the arena. At the same time the situation reached a dead end. Two girls slew their weapons in a confrontation, each of which pressed, trying to force the other under pressure. In the end they were both thrown back and they landed on their feet. Screw suddenly threw her hands in the air and was surrounded by a green tornado. When it dissipated she was also in armor. She had green armor imitating her body. On her hands she had green gloves with yellow jam and white gloves. The upper part of her legs were also covered in white, and on her feet she had knee-high boots with heels. The difference between her armor and the others was that she had wings. They were green with yellow membranes. At the end of her fan now had red spikes. When she opened it at the end, 3 flat blades were visible. Thunder decided it was time to take it up a notch. 2 thunder clouds formed above them and a bolt of purple lightning struck her. Dan quietly he gasped when he saw his daughter being struck by lightning. But he gasped along with everyone else when everything became clear. His daughter was now wearing armor just like Tiri's, except that her armor was purple. The gloves and material covering her legs were black, just like the crystals on her hand and the membranes on her wings. Her sword was now slightly larger, with a purple blade with a black stripe running through it. The two girls clashed again. Only this time, Screw was the attacker. She closed it and was very close to punching a hole in her friend. Fortunately, Vershka's gram speed increased along with her armor, so she was able to block the blows with her fan and managed to land several blows with her sword. When sword and armor collided, sparks flew. Screw managed to land a strong blow to Thunder's jaw and throw it back a little. It was then that she decided to use one of her more powerful attacks. Galactic Storm, she shouted, opening her fan and unleashing a powerful storm on Slav that could drown out peals of thunder. Bring happiness. Thunder spread her wings and flew into the air. Just as she was about to hit, the wind decided to join her in flight and swooped down on her. The two collided in the air and found themselves in another dead end in Kagi's box. Gara was in awe of his older brother's incredible strength. He mentally chuckled at the thought of what she would do to these idiots when the time came for the brutal beating that the Leaf Village had prepared. Meanwhile Konkora mentally cursed. When he was little he made a solemn promise to protect his older sister if she was so strong, and Naruto was stronger than now. There was a way he could protect her. However, he smiled at the thought that her sister was safe in the arms of her future husband. Back on air, the two girls were getting tired of this little game of cat and mouse, so they decided to use their most powerful moves to put an end to this fight and give everyone a little show. The final storm wind screamed as the wind suddenly increased in strength and gathered behind her, forming a glowing green energy that took the form of Jordan. The beast growled at Thunder, who decided to pull out his and raised it up. A majestic lightning bolt screamed. Purple lightning struck the ground behind her and formed a Kalash. Lightning Dragon roared loudly and gave a powerful roar towards Wind and Jordan. Wind closed its fan and green energy began to form around it. Thunder raised his sword and a volt lightning bolt struck it and it began to glow purple. Both took a running stance and rushed at each other. The two met with a loud bang and a powerful explosion. When Seiya, it was clear that Screw was lying unconscious on the ground and Thunder was standing. Thunder picked up Screw and carried her to the fighter's cabin where, after a couple of minutes, Win woke up. The time had come, Sasuke thought when the girls returned to the cabin. Almost immediately as the girls entered the cabin, a golden flame flared up in the ring and the dragon prince froze there, waiting. "Take a good look at him, ladies," Sasuke said, turning to the girls. "This is the last time you see him alive." He said this, he jumped down ready for the opportunity to fight. Part 12. The last war. Sasuke landed in front of the dragon prince and prepared for their fight. "You might as well give up now, loser," Sasuke said arrogantly. "You'll only make it even more humiliating when I beat you. Victory is never guaranteed," said the prince. "You still need to defeat what stands in your way, and I will not give up easily." Many things were said in the stands. This prince doesn't stand a chance against the Uchiha. I wonder if he will take off that mask. I want to see who is hiding under it. Among the voices were Kahuna Maru and his friends Mages and Udon. With them was the fourth participant, Kahu's friend Naha Maru. "Hanabi, I can't believe them," said Kaga's grandson. "These idiots really think the Uchiha will defeat this guy." "Do you think the prince can defeat Hanabi?" I asked my boyfriend. "I don't know," he answered, "but I heard that he's probably strong. They say he fought with 3 NS8 teams from 3 different villages and won." Said the man behind them. "This is probably all just hype that someone made up to seem powerful. He will be dead in a few minutes." Returning to the ring, the dragon prince chuckled. "Do you hear that?" he asked, catching Sasuke's confused look. "They are talking about you defeating me, Uchiha. It's time to wake them up." At that moment, with a speed that even Kage couldn't keep up with, the prince ran up to Sasuke and delivered a strong punch right in the chest, sending him across the ring into the wall. From the crowd, numerous sighs and screams were heard. Sasuke-kun second. Obviously there were girls who were still both kids and his fans. "Damn, these girls need to start a hobby or at least find someone to kiss and find something else to occupy their time. I mean, really look what it became." Sakura. In any case, the only ones who weren't surprised were the people who came to be friends with him and those who hated the Uchiha and was glad that he was going to get beaten today. Naruto shouted to the crowd, "You people are getting a wake-up call." And this is the same time Sasuke stood up with a quiet groan, trying to get rid of the pain in his chest. "Where did he get such strength?" asked Sasuke. Sasuke attacked and tried to hit the prince, but Naruto dodged every move and blocked several blows that were thrown. Naruto eventually got bored. He caught his fist and threw it over his shoulder. Unfortunately, Sasuke landed on his feet. He pulled out a kunai and threw it, but Naruto drew his sword and blocked it. Naruto decided to show Sasuke what he was capable of. "Dragon Strike!" he screamed as his sword began to glow and he swung it, sending an arc of golden energy at Sasuke, who took the full blow but managed to stand. "I'm impressed," said the prince, putting his sword back in its sheath. "Not very many were able to stand up after a strike from my sword. That's what you get for underestimating an Uchiha," Sasuke said arrogantly. "Well then," said Naruto, "I guess I'll have to start taking lightning style seriously." An arc wave. As soon as Naruto said that, Sasuke activated his Sharingan, who received a third comma in each eye in their battle at the Valley of the End to try to copy the jutsu, but to his surprise, he couldn't. Kakashi also tried to copy it, but he also failed. "Why can't I copy this technique?" they both thought at the same time. Naruto formed lightning in his hand and threw it at Sasuke, who took a pretty strong blow. "If you're wondering why you couldn't copy my technique, it's because I didn't need to use hand signs," said the dragon prince, causing Sasuke to bury. Sasuke stood up, made hand signs and shouted, "Fire style!" A massive fireball. The fireball flew at Naruto, who shouted a fire dragon roar. He took a deep breath and actually swallowed the fireball, much to everyone's shock. He then released it all in a powerful lion, which sent a huge stream of fire at the last Uchiha, which was now true since Itachi was dead. Sasuke concentrated and his Sharingan took a form similar to a shuriken. Then there was a sudden burst of black flames. It reflected the fire attack sent by Naruto. Amara thought. Naruto seeing this, "I had a feeling that Madara had not yet let his power fade away. Probably he put some of his power into Sasuke when he died." Sasuke smirked. "No, I will show you the true power of the Uchiha." He activated Tsukimi spelling and caught Naruto with a powerful Ginza. However, Naruto activated his Twilight Eye under his mask and dispelled it. Then he fell to the ground pretending to be afraid of what was happening. Sasuke decided to end this fight and fired towards the acting prince. However, right before he could strike, Naruto jumped and caught his fist. "How?" asked Sasuke, wondering how someone managed to get rid of one of the strongest techniques of his clan. "I have an ability that allows me to see through all kinds Ginza jutsu, including Tsukimi," explained Naruto before punching Sasuke in the stomach at least 5 times before sending him away with a kick to the face. Sasuke stood up a few seconds later and activated his curse mark, sending strange marks all over his body, meaning he was desperate enough to summon the power of the snake, thought Baggett. Watching what was happening, "You trained your son very well," said Dime of Water. "Sorry to say this," said Baggett, "but he is not my son." They all looked at him, and Baggett continued, "I trained him because of a favor from friends, plus his father helped me." "His father?" asked Sakura. "A noble man from this village," said the king. "He helped me in the ninja war, and I am in his debt. The prince knows this, but he still calls me father because I am like a father to him." And the training was like an adoption ceremony. Sakura was silent. She turned around and saw Sasuke activating his curse mark. She mentally chuckled. This will show this loser how to mess with Sasuke. She thought as she returned to the ring. Naruto noticed the marks appearing and smiled. We are falling into despair, aren't we? He asked. Anger and Sasuke attacked as visible chakra began to flow out of him. He attacked the prince only to have golden chakra begin to flow out of him. The two clashed and ended up fighting upstairs in another booth. Kakashi knew he had to help his student. Kakashi, what did you start asking? Smoking, but he stopped when Kakashi jumped down and rushed across the arena towards the prince, who he didn't think saw it coming. Luckily for Naruto, he heard Kakashi jump down, and since his Twilight Eye was still active, he used part of the Byakugan and saw Kakashi approaching. He could see the chakra gathering in the copy ninja's eye and knew he was going to try Chidori. Naruto shifted his weight and threw Sasuke at Kakashi. Just as he lunged forward, Sasuke slammed into Kakashi and sent them both flying. As he saw me approaching, thought Kakashi, looking at the Dragon Prince. At that moment the mask began. The prince lowered his head as the pieces of the mask fell to the ground. Everyone was intrigued. The Dragon Prince reached into his pocket and pulled out a headband with an image of the Dragon Village. He then grabbed a piece of material at the base of his neck and pulled it off, revealing a shock of spiky blonde hair. This can't be happening, Kakashi thought as the prince wrapped the bandage around his forehead and tied it behind his back. He's dead. Sasuke's eyes widened as he saw the prince raise his head to reveal Naruto Uzumaki's face. Okay, Kahuna shouted. The boss had returned. His friends greeted him along with him. The other Genin in the village along with their parents smiled. Those who didn't hate Naruto, everyone grinned. He always tried to offend. He returned and was ready to deal with everyone who had hurt him. Outside the arena, Jair was watching what was happening through a telescope. He grinned at the expression on everyone's faces. An expression of shock and disbelief. The demon returned. A random civilian shouted, breaking the silence. A second later, he was pierced. An icicle courtesy of Gray. The rest decided to keep quiet so as not to suffer the same fate. We will continue, asked Naruto when Kakashi and Sasuke. Kakashi showed his Sharingan eye and showed it to be at its highest level. Sasuke's Sharingan was still active, so he attacked Kakashi. They both faced strong punches from fists to the chest. They came to their senses and looked to see that Naruto had gone Earth-style bounty hunter. They heard Naruto's voice and Sasuke was pulled underground up to his neck. Naruto burst out of the ground a few feet away and collided with Kakashi. Time of reckoning. You theme-loving idiot, said Naruto, crossing his arms over his chest to his old senshi. Naruto began. Kakashi, I don't know what you did to get this power, but I will kill you like I did 3 years ago. Kakashi rushed at Naruto only to be thrown into the air and get kicked by Naruto the guy and then get hit in the face. Kakashi was about to get up and try to fight again, but Naruto was gone, and that's it. Knew that Naruto was on the other side of Kakashi, who was holding his face, screaming in absolute agony. He didn't do it, said Asuma. He did it, said Guy, with the fact that there was only one Sharingan user left. If Naruto is really as strong as the legends say, then the Sharingan will die that day. Kakashi, said Naruto, turning to face his former sins. Time to pay for his crimes. Naruto stood in a familiar pose with his legs apart and one hand extended down, palm to the ground. Then chakra began to gather in his hand and formed a Chidori where he recognized my technique, thought Kakashi. Seeing how it changes, the Chidori glowed brighter and brighter until it turned into a mass of silver lightning. Then it turned gold and it seemed to have a little fire added to it. Naruto moved the hand that held the technique to the side and shouted, Dragon Reikiri. As soon as these words were said, Naruto rushed forward on Kakashi with a speed that made Guy look like a slug and pierced the technique into his chest. Kakashi groaned before Rook. Sasuke fell to the ground in pain at this. Sasuke said to Naruto, you and your clan have demonstrated a disregard for the safety of others and a disgusting habit of betraying others for the sake of power. You are no different from your older brother. Sasuke growled again, lunging at Naruto. This time, he pulled out a scroll and drew his sword. Some of the civilians smirked. Sasuke began swinging it wildly, thinking he could break through Naruto's defense with a continuous attack. This continued until Naruto caught the sword and threw Sasuke back. Shadow sword clone, Naruto said, making an exact copy of his sword. He then assumed a sword stance and shouted, Ancient Sword Technique 10.000 Rain Strikes. Naruto began swinging his swords wildly, and as the name of the technique suggests, it looked like a rain of sword strikes was falling on Sasuke. He managed to block a few of them, but the rest managed to get through. As the technique progressed, multiple cuts appeared on Sasuke's back, legs and arms. Sasuke growled as he stood up and managed to pick up the sword he dropped when he was being cut. You are more resilient than I thought. Uchiha smirked Naruto as Sasuke stood up despite the incredible pain in his body. Sasuke growled as he stood up and decided to kill Dabi now with his ultimate power. The marks on his body glowed and spread until they covered his entire body, healing his wounds. When the marks disappeared, Sasuke appeared in a different form. Now his skin was darker and his hair was purple. He had a black mark on his nose and the whites of his eyes were black. He still had the manga Koyu Sharingan, so the color of his pupils did not change. Just then a pair of large hands burst out from behind Sasuke. Now he was at the second level of his curse. Mark 1. Remember that Naruto said, Crossing his arms over his chest. This is the same form you used when we fought in the Valley of the End. Honestly, I'm really surprised the mark is still active after I killed the snake. Sasuke growled, taking a fighting stance. Well said, Naruto. Wait, putting his sword behind his back. If you're going to use your full power, I might as well go ahead and use mine. Naruto called upon his power and a flash of gold came from it. When it disappeared, it showed Naruto in white armor. The armor was made to look human except for a large green crystal in the middle of his chest. The upper part of his arms and legs were white and gold. His dress had white combat boots with small blades sticking out of the back. His gauntlets had small blades coming out of the elbows, and on his hands were gloves with claws. He had round shoulder pads that connected to the chest armor. In his hand he held his sword, only it had changed now. It was crystal with rubies on the blade made in the form of a spiral. On his back he had wings with golden membranes. Naruto faced a changed Sasuke ready to end the war they started 3 years ago. Sasuke rushed at Naruto, still drawing his sword, and swung it instead of the swords colliding as they did before. The sword shattered like glass hitting a brick wall. Civilians gasped. The sword was made of chia, so they thought it was unbreakable. Naruto took advantage of Sasuke's confusion and dealt him a powerful uppercut to the jaw, sending him into the sky. Naruto flew up to him and punched him in the stomach. When Sasuke hit the concrete below, he turned around. Naruto landed on the ground. His wings were still outstretched. Uchiha, any last words? He asked. How did you get this power? Dabi, I deserve this more than you. I am an Uchiha elite. Sasuke screamed. Naruto shook his head. What a loss. He shook his head. He put his hand on Sasuke's head and almost instantly Sasuke staggered in pain. Naruto used Shinigami powers to make him feel the pain he had felt his entire life. Then Naruto stood up and shouted golden fury. As he did this, the golden energy that belonged to him came together to form Bahamut in all its terrifying glory. Then the beast rushed at Sasuke and the result was heard around the world. Boom, an explosion filled the ring and the air filled with smoke. When the smoke cleared, Naru and a huge crater became visible where Saw from Uchiha used to be. There was MTV and the Sharingan disappeared. Ending this, Naruto soared into the air and shouted, Konoha, your day of reckoning has come. Part 13 Fallen Epilogue. As soon as Naruto said those words, a team of Root NSA appeared out of nowhere and attacked Naruto. An earth dragon stood in their way and with one swing of his axe sent them flying. She reached for her mask and took it off to show Ino's face. Ino. Sakura screamed seeing her friend. The other girls showed their faces, making everyone gasp. Traitors. Danza shouted, you will die along with the demon. More Ruta appeared, but Naruto activated the power of Shinigami and destroyed their hearts. Just by looking at them, Danzo was about to summon more Anbu when the daimyo of Wata jumped up from her seat and ran a clawed hand across his face. The daimyo of Wata turned to look at Sumi. Hello, auntie, she said, smiling from under her hood. Eren asked Sumi when the daimyo removed her hood, revealing a young woman with Inuzuka marks on her cheeks. Sumi smiled and ran up to hug her long-lost relative. Danza stood up and tried to kill them, but Bagout reached him first and punched him in the face, sending him through the concrete. By this time, the civilians in the stands began to scatter and every combat-ready ninja entered the arena thinking that they could kill them because they had the numbers on their side. Of course, they were either frozen by Gray, defeated by Urza, or burned alive. Natsu. Naruto jumped to the Kage booth to see the heads of the ninja clans Daijira and Tsunade with them. To the surprise there was Rose and Sakura. Haruna. Naruto glared at Sakura. I have a complaint against you. He said the native NSA tried to get him but was pierced by the provided Kimi before entering the fight again. He winked at Sumi who gave him a wild. Sakura looked at Naruto with fear in his eyes, then she remembered who it was and did not suspect that now Naruto passionately hates her to the depths of her soul. She smirked, saying the words that she thought would save her. Leave it, Naruto, she said with a knowing smirk. We both know that you don't have the guts to hurt me. I'm your Sakura Tien, so why don't you just stop pretending and let yourself die already? Carried her a strong blow to the jaw from which she flew out of the wheelchair and crashed into my little Rose screamed when she went to check on her daughter. Zabuza called Naruto and a man with swords appeared behind him. Yes, my prince, Zabuza asked, wondering why he was called. Get the daimyo clan heads away from her. Jiro, tell Haku to she grab the people our spies marked. Repeated Suna. I remembered the people who were kind to me, said Naruto. I asked some of our spies to mark them with a special seal that will lead them out of here. Then I will tear this damned place to pieces. Good riddance to bad trash, said the Dami of Fire. He and the other daimyo made their decision when Kakashi entered the ring to try to kill Naruto and sent a message to their samurai to come and remove everyone who stood in their way. Zabuza sent a message to Haku on the radio and fell silent along with everyone he was tasked to pick up, leaving him alone with the women. Haruna, you monster, Rose screamed, throwing herself at him. She met his fist and was thrown further than her daughter, who only now woke up from her unexpected fight. Why are you doing this? She asked. It was your home, your village. Why are you destroying it? Why? He asked. Because this village beat me, hurt me and tried to stop my growth. I found a place I can call home, the place where I finally knew love. He looked at her intently, continuing, I once loved you, Sakura, but every time I tried to get close to you I Was pushed away by reasons. Know that you are nothing more than a stain on my heart that I plan to get rid of right now. He drew his sword and raised it high. When Sakura saw the sword raised, her life flashed before her eyes. She saw how she treated him, how the village treated him, and it brought tears to her eyes. She saw how Naruto was kind to her while Sasuke didn't even give her the time of day. Then she realized that she had missed something great. She wished she could go back in time and take it all back, but in his time her wish was not granted. She closed her eyes when Naruto lowered his sword. Meanwhile Rose collapsed to the ground and groaned in pain. She had numerous broken bones and could barely move. A few seconds later she felt someone's presence. She opened her eyes despite the pain and saw Kudera standing over her with a hardened web in her hand. She screamed. It was the last sound she ever made. Meanwhile, somewhere outside the village, in an underground base, Hamura, Koharu and Dan were sitting at a table surrounded by root anbu. This brat growled. Hamura. He should have died years ago. If he had died, we wouldn't have this problem. If he was in my program. Danzo snorted. We would be invincible. Well, Koharu said, what are we going to do to find out? While we're talking, the village is being destroyed. Don't worry, Danzo said, calming the old man. While we're here, we don't need to worry about being found. When the destruction ends, we will rebuild the village and kill this roadie. The old war hawk grinned above them. A loud roar was heard. They looked and saw how the ceiling collapsed and Baggett descended along with 3 wingless bandages, showing his right eye with a Sharingan. Bahamut responded. Kakashi disappeared and Danza made him grab his face, screaming in pain. Hamura and Kaha watched in horror as Baggett took out a sword and cut off Danza's hand, which had a ton of Sharingan eyes. Baggett waved a dragon behind him and they carried Kaha and Haru away. He turned to Danza, shook his head and left. Danza was slowly dying from blood loss. Returning to the village, Koharu and Hamura, along with most of the village, gathered in the center of the village. They looked back and saw Naruto standing on the building in front of them, still in his armor. Why did you bring us here, demon? The civilian shouted. Insolence. Naruto said. Has it ever occurred to you? Why haven't I tried to destroy this village yet? This question surprised everyone. I love this village despite the hardships I had to go through. Naruto said. If I was the monster you spoke of, then why didn't I kill those who hurt me? Why didn't I destroy the place that wanted me dead, no matter what happened? The civilians were silent. Listening to the boy, I found happiness with certain people. Here, but when this village betrayed me I found that I no longer have loyalty to it. Yes, exactly, someone shouted. Nellinus demon, you do not deserve to live. You should have died when Yonda did not imprison you in this form. Now let us go or we will have to take matters into our own hands. Arrogant to the end, said Naruto, rising into the air and Vaz Virgo hands he shouted. Baggett, let us show us the true power of the Dragon King. And Prince Baggett flew up to him and also used his power. They both fired a golden beam into the sky and the explosions mixed, forming a massive energy ball. I think the spirit bomb, only golden fury of the golden dragon. They both screamed, shooting down the energy ball. The civilians screamed, seeing their lives flash before their eyes. The energy ball crashed into the village square and everything seemed to freeze for a moment before a powerful explosion from space occurred. It seemed like a huge dome of fire covered the village and everything around for several miles. Fortunately, when they were taken away everyone was in another world, so they didn't have to worry about what they will suffer. After finishing his work, Naruto opened a portal to another world and entered it. As soon as he did, he saw his new home, his friends and everyone else. His fiancée Copyright S immediately grabbed him and threw him to the ground. Naruto stood up and kissed each of them in greeting, including the 3 goddesses. Usually Kiba would have envied the luck of the blondes, but he was busy looking at Taya, who smirked at him in response, gathering everyone in one place and giving several rather lengthy explanations to those who did not know what happened. From then on they headed to the village to get acquainted with the new world. Epilogue. Naruto stood on top of a large mountain. 10 years had passed since the destruction of Konoha and Naruto was now the current Dragon King. Baggett retired and handed over the mantle to Naruto. He and the girls got married about a year after that. The honeymoon passed almost without incident except for the time when Naruto caught Jiraiya trying to spy on them, resulting in Jiraiya almost being burned alive. The honeymoon ended with all the girls tired and exhausted. Hinata was the first to get pregnant and give birth to a healthy boy. The rest gave birth. Naruto was happy with those whom Kami, Shinigami and Tozi had to take to the world of the gods so they could train in their abilities. Almost everyone else also managed to find love. Kiba and she ended up in a love-hate relationship. Although Sum was glad because Kiba had someone who could straighten him out if his ego ever got the better of him, which usually happened. Droba ended up dating his cousin Chad. Now they are married and expecting a child. A few weeks later, speaking of Chad, he started dating Ayami because they were both excellent cooks. Kitamura found a lover in Anka because of his habit of playing with his enemies. They both got along and Anka is expecting his child in a month. Kimi Maru and Sumi is currently married and she is expecting a new puppy in there was no one. Carrie leaves the dimension to see her boyfriend Inri. Now that they are in their 20s they are happily married and return to the land of waves. It was true Naruto had a new home, family and a place that he ruled. Naruto smirked, heading to his room however when he opened the door he found that the girls were waiting for him. Even 3 goddesses were there. Time to play stallion, said Shinigami, grabbing him by the shirt and dragging him into the room. Looks like I won't be able to sleep tonight, thought Naruto as his lovers dragged him into the room. As soon as he did, you heard giggling moans. Life for Naruto Uzumaki has never been sweeter.